Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the 125th meeting of 7th Council of Municipalities South Dundas, our only July meeting for this year, and I did the count. We have 6 more after this to go that are official meetings, notwithstanding any special ones. Sorry about the delay in starting. We did do a closed session, and in fact we still have to add one back because we didn't get through all the agenda items in that session. Confirmation of agenda, Madam Clerk.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. We have a few items this evening. Items 9A and B under consent will be moved to discussion. Under discussion, we will also have the addition of the Aircoil flagpole. Item 8C, the appointment of a chief building official, is being postponed to a future meeting, and we will have the addition of a second closed session at the end of the meeting. Please.
Okay. Is there any additions, deletions, or amendments from any member of council at this time? Seeing none, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Councillor Wells.
8B, Bylaw 2022-84, Morrisburg Viewing Platform. My son is the owner of the company.
Okay, thank you. Anything further from any member of council? Seeing none, the adoption of minutes for the regular meeting of June 27th and the special meeting of June 29th, 2022, please.
Sure. Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that the minutes of the 123rd regular and in-camera meetings and the 124th special and in-camera meetings of council be adopted as circulated.
Is there any discussion, issues with the minutes from council? Seeing none, all heard the motion. Those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Tonight we have for a delegation an OPP update from SDG Detachment Mark Hamerick. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Welcome
Mr.
to South Dundas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors, staff, for having me this evening. Just to give you a bit, I just wanted to begin by thanking everyone for their continued support of the OPP and the detachment. This is something that when I spoke to you last year about the mobile community response team that I got to thinking about, and I really wanted to make a point to at least not just present myself in front of the Police Services Board or the United Counties Council when something was needed or when there was a special topic, but also make myself available to the local municipal councils and their staff on a yearly basis. You will see that in the fall we will start having regular OPP representation 3 times a year, and I'll be the 4th at all the municipal councils across the United Counties. I will be the only representative to be going to county council, and I bring my staff with me through PSB just to provide, through the Police Services Board, just to provide those regular updates. I don't know how familiar yourself, Mr. Mayor, council staff, you've been with former representation from the detachment commander. They may have presented you with some statistical analysis about some crime trends, traffic trends that have been occurring within the municipality. Unfortunately, IBM, where we gather our statistical data through IBM, was also affected by Rogers. So for about 4 days now, I've been trying to pull the information out, and finally reached out to a fellow detachment commander, and he said, "Yeah, Rogers." Okay, so I do not have any statistical data to present, but as I always prequel everybody, unless I produce those stats myself, I'm not huge on statistical data. They can often seem like very pretty numbers or very scary numbers, but until you really break them down into some more specifics, I don't like to rely on them too heavily. So I thought what I would do this evening is I would provide yourself, Mr. Mayor, and council and the staff with some just general high-level updates of what has been occurring over the last year since you last saw me here. In SDNG, in particular to the municipality, and then I wanted to open it up to some concerns council might have or questions you might have as to regards to the activities that have been that our members have been up to. I would like to begin first of all with the mobile community response team and thanking council for their endorsement of support. So we were successful in petitioning county council to get the funding extension, which was very, very well needed as the program continues to be a tremendous success. Not just from saving officer workload time, but really, again, connecting those people that are most vulnerable in our communities with those essential services. Probably the thing I'm working hardest with the team right now is that COVID, they got into a bit of a groove of doing a lot of follow-up via the phone. And I've really worked hard lately with the hospital staff, especially the management team at the hospital, and encouraging, you know, when that implied consent is there, don't make the call, be out there, go see the people in person. It really just elevates that level of care we're able to provide to people, and it really, you know, it gets them out in the community as well, because people will ask, right, when they see the officer and a civilian riding around with a bulletproof vest that says nurse on, you know, they get a lot of communication and feedback from the public that way. So that's just another enhancement we're working on. We did complete, as promised, we did complete our business case. In the end, after some consultation with some people from the ministry, we actually combined our business case with the Cornwall Community Police Service. Because we both get our services, our partnership from the Cornwall Community Police Service, and part of the provincial funding comes from the province directly to the hospital, and then the hospital divvies up. It was suggested to us that if we formed a partnership with the Cornwall Police and submitted a joint business case, that we would be negotiating in a much stronger position of strength. The business case was completed in the spring as promised, and then we had a friend within the ministries telling us not to submit it, to wait till after the provincial election. And Premier Ford had selected his cabinets and junior ministers and so on and so forth. So in September, that will be going in. We've already had some very good inroads with Health East. They know it's coming. They know the data they're going to be seeing. They know the savings that they're seeing right now, and they seem very, very receptive to listening to it. I was very happy to tell you that we applied for an enhancement grant. So the enhancement grant was not to replace that base funding that I've spoken to you about in the past, but that enhancement grant is actually a funding shot in the arm for 2 years to allow the programs to be enhanced. The SDNG OPP was successful in getting that enhancement grant. So we received an additional $150,000 for 2 years to enhance the program. So that enhancement gives us 7-day-a-week, 12-hour coverage, plus we actually have a case manager working within the detachment right now. Unfortunately, I'm sure as council's aware, I'm sure as staff is aware, the Cornwall Community Hospital is not isolated or immune to the hiring challenges in the medical profession at the moment, and they have had some very big challenges in hiring someone for that enhancement grant. We were fortunate they were able to pull someone from the existing staff, so that case manager, and the case manager was able to start right away, but they still have yet to hire somebody to actually fill that actual clinician role that goes out with the officers. Let me tell you, it has not been for a lack of trying. So we're still working that with the hospital, and unfortunately that is out of my hands. That's the hospital's part. That's how they manage their portion of the partnership. The hospital has been very active, working with Glengarry Memorial and Winchester District. So I don't know if Mr. Mayor or you council are aware, but the Cornwall Community Hospital actually provides crisis services to Winchester and Glengarry Memorial. And what we've done is we ran into a few occasions in the fall where we had clients that were going there and the mobile crisis response team was showing up, and the physicians and the teams within the ERs had no idea who they were, what they could do. So we've really worked hard with Cornwall Community Hospital at educating Winchester and Glengarry to let them know about the team, what they can do, that yes, the nurse is accredited with Cornwall Community Hospital. She's part of their crisis team, so she can really help move patients through the emergency room, and really, you know, that wait time at those two hospitals has just decreased just through some simple education through the doctors and nurses there. COVID-19, just to give you an idea, I believe, Mr. Mayor, were you on the email that I sent to Warden Williams over the Christmas holidays?
That's too long ago for me to
All right.
remember.
An email did go out to Warden Williams. So we had a COVID-19 outbreak over the Christmas holidays where I had to shut the detachment to the public for 2 weeks. It was right in the nick of time. So we were very fortunate because we shut it to the public, and we basically shuttered our operations just to frontline emergency services only in the office. We were actually able to keep it contained and out of the office. So anybody that subsequently got COVID was actually on rest days. So that was communicated to the chair of the PSB and Warden Williams, and I believe she may have filtered that out, but like everybody here, I'm sure that everybody's happy we are at summertime, and that the COVID restrictions and health mandates have calmed themselves down or loosened. I certainly know that my officers are extremely glad they're not having to wear masks, they're not having to complete a daily screening checker. We still do take precautions, and there are still protocols in place for when somebody does get COVID, but I know everybody is very pleased about those things. Certainly moving into the new year, I could say probably all-consuming thing, and some people may cringe. I know I said COVID, I saw a few faces cringe, but now I'm going to say Freedom Convoy, and you may see a few more faces. So I can tell you that you know, the detachment had been open for 2 weeks, and then Freedom Convoy hit us. And in my 20 years of policing, that has probably been the most taxing thing I have ever seen on a detachment. Commissioner Creek actually had to cancel all discretionary leave, and all uniform members that were able to carry their use of force were put on standby. With our detachment, with the proximity to the city of Ottawa and the proximity to the city of Cornwall, I don't know if council's aware, but there was a one-day or an afternoon disruption of the port of entry in Cornwall where the bridge was blocked. We did get called by Cornwall Police to provide them with assistance, and thereafter we provided 24/7 security at the port of entry. So we had a full-time team working with Cornwall Police. Their only job was to protect the port of entry. So that, along with supporting the activities, along with supporting the Ottawa Police Service, was just a tremendous strain on the membership. And certainly from my perspective, I couldn't be more proud of the way people handled that. You know, to be told your vacation's canceled, you can't take a day off, you work either in Ottawa at detachment or in Cornwall 7 days a week. You know, we tried as hard to give people some days off as we could, but you know, we had to schedule them anyway and maintain our regular operations at the detachment. You know, we didn't get a single person out of, you know, over 100 people, not a single person pushed back against us. They all just accepted it as a portion of their duties and as a member of being on the Ontario Provincial Police, and they acted in the utmost professional way. Like I said, I couldn't be more proud. We had multiple members when it was time for positive action and to open the city of Ottawa back up. We had multiple members up in the city of Ottawa that worked on the first day a 23-hour shift. They slept for 4 hours and then they went back out for another 22 hours to help clear the city of Ottawa. So very, very proud of all those members, and certainly, you know, I think council should be as well. Certainly happy to be in the nice warm weather with the summer punts, specifically to South Dundas. I hope that there has been some feedback from council in regards to the proactive patrols that have been going on down at the waterfront by our officers and our auxiliary unit. Our auxiliary unit previously had been doing neighborhood patrols specific to the Long Sault and Ingleside area, some villages where we had some trouble with some youth, causing some mischief, some vandalism. But I know that in the past, especially in the summer months, the Morrisburg waterfront really picks up in its activity. So we made it a detachment priority for the summer to really have those proactive patrols. And, you know, I simply ask the officers, you know, hey, if you're gonna go for a coffee and sit around and drink a coffee, drink your coffee, grab your coffee from McDonald's, grab your coffee from Tim's, just go down to the waterfront and take a walk and drink your coffee. Get your exercise at the same time. And it goes a very, very long way, you know, in showing that public confidence, showing people that we're out there, and, you know, really making sure that the people that are enjoying the waterfront are know that they have the support of the police. Our vessel is in the water doing regular patrols of the seaway. Unfortunately, the OPP is not immune to supply shortages, so we are having trouble with our vessels right now, not just purchasing whole new vessels, but getting motors for them as well. The marine industry has just been crippled as well, so we currently where we generally have 2 vessels, one parked at Chrysler Park, one parked in the Lancaster area to cover both sides of the dam. We had to give up one of our vessels to another detachment, Lennox and Addington County, that they cover quite a large swath of the St. Lawrence, and that's some big water that they've got to cover. So we've had to throw our boat, our only boat now, on the trailer and keep it in Long Sault at all times, so that we can deploy it on either side of the dam. Certainly I pushed back pretty hard against the OPP, sort of explaining to them that, you know, on the east half of the dam, we have, you know, other partners. We have the RCMP, we have Hogansburg Fire, Cornwall Fire's boat is down right now, so we don't have them, but we have the SQ that can come and help us out. On the west side of the dam between here and Prescott, it's just the OPP. So, you know, that's something that I've certainly brought up to General Headquarters, saying, hey, like, we need another vessel, right? It may not need to be a full-size Boston whaler that we keep in the water all the time, but we need something local that we can deploy at any time, right? And something that something smaller, like a 14-foot, you know, outboard could handle, you know, the channel here. It's not that intense, and it's not that wide either. We've seen a significant increase in our traffic safety activities, which I'm very pleased to hear. I know that's a big point for the Police Services Board. I know there's been a lot of recent media focus on the 138, and there certainly will be. It is certainly, we consider it one of our most challenging highways to patrol, but I can tell you that the traffic safety is being spread out evenly across all the counties. So we're seeing a lot of regular patrols, a lot of rides, a lot of education happening, especially you know, on 31 and some of the bigger arteries in the township. We're seeing our pay duties come back as well. So Tubies weekend is coming up. We've had the Tubies request. We've had the request for the Tubies dance that night. I'm hoping to make an appearance at the Tubies. I am required to be up at the games, the Highland Games, on the same weekend. So kind of get pulled in both ways. But I have committed to the PSB and to the United Counties that I was going to try and spread myself, not too thin, but spread myself across all of the festivals this year. I realize that the Highland Games draws, you know, between 30 and 50,000 people over the course of the weekend, and, you know, we've got a lot going on that weekend, but that shouldn't preclude, you know, our presence everywhere else, right? So, on a final note, I certainly would like to thank the municipality. The detachment wanted me to pass this on for the new lighting. Big hit. I don't know if that was part of the municipal building received the same, but Mr. Mayor, the council, the detachment received all new lighting, which is all LED lighting, but it's also dimmable. So it's the first time the lights have been dimmable. So certainly at nighttime when they're doing their reports, it's really nice for the officers, they say, just to be able to go over to that switch and not turn them off, but just dim them down, and it really, really helps them out. So, and it's, you know, it's one of those very small creature comforts that goes a really long way. So I just wanted to pass on my thanks for that. Besides that, are there any questions?
I don't really have any question Commander, some comments. The mental health situation in your officers, I think, I know that Deputy Mayor Gardner has been a strong supporter. She could probably speak on it longer than I will, but it certainly was very important at the counties. It's important here in South Dundas too. I'm glad to see you got some funding from the province. As you know, there are some councillors that are pretty adamant that this is not really our job. It should be the province. I'm a little disappointed you didn't stick it to the province for the election, because then some other ones could shove it, and hopefully they will be fairly honorable as they go along, because elections is when they tend to throw the checkbook out, as we all witnessed. After the election, when you have 83 seats, I don't need you anymore. I'm good for the next 2 years or maybe 3. So it's just politicians talking. So if I was wanted to be reelected this year, I'd get the checkbook out too, but I'm not going to do that. Working with other police services. So I noticed that I follow the city of Ottawa quite a bit because of its situation and the news feed I tend to be on. They've had the same struggles of funding, but it seems like the cities are behind. They don't see the opportunity that your detachment and the counties have had the vision to do prior to them. And I commend those before you now, and counties for at least starting that up and getting that moving. It almost seems like it makes us question why the bigger cities can't do it. And we struggle for funding, but I know they're bigger. As I said, when I go in the city, if I see an auto police service anywhere out in rural Ottawa, there must be some incident, because they don't tend to be there, but I know it's just the way it is. But if you work with them, not necessarily Ottawa, but the OPP work with other police services and try to really show the province this is what it can do. We need it, you need to fund it instead of the municipalities end up doing the funding. They did the seed. Now it's time for you to pick up the ball and run with it. And I know the feds are throwing dollars at mental health services too. So possibly there's ways of, I'm not trying to chicken out of what we've done. I think we're all proud of what we've done. It's just a matter of who pays for what. And I think that's the fair way of looking at it. I thank you and your officers for dealing with the quote-unquote freedom convoy. I have a hard time doing that without the quotes. It had to be done. It was a lot of work for not only your detachment, but the Auto Police Service and the whole 9 yards. And it was just a messy situation that nobody understood. And I'm afraid it's still not quite done yet. So I think they're handling it better now, but lots of lessons learned, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. And thank you for sending some officers down, whether auxiliary or uniformed police, down to our waterfronts to at least have a walkabout. I think part of the challenge is that if you're not seen, there's no felt of doing the right thing. But if you see somebody, better behave. Like it was just like the old days, and you weren't around probably, because I used to work in Chesterville, and this was going back to late 70s, early 80s. In Dunbar, there used to be an OPP officer that would sit there on a regular basis. And once you knew that in your head, you never sped through Dunbar. It was just that, or the old, as Jim Graham used to call it, the fishing hole at Upper Canada Road, that you could sit on that merge and just pick them off left, right, and center. I know you're too busy to do that kind of constant patrol now, but it's good to see some presence out on that. It's good for the community. It's good for everybody. I say my calls on speeding are down. I don't know what the others have heard, but I know the Lakeshore issue with Constable Blanchette and I worked on dealing with that and getting it down. It's still not perfect, trust me, but The two ladies that had concerns have his personal number, so I'll let them deal with that, and if it has to go any further, he took that chance, not me. But those kind of, working with the community to come up with solutions on what we consider major issues and maybe don't look major in the big scheme of things is certainly helpful. So, with that, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. Hi, Inspector. Just a couple of questions. With the mental health mobile response team, I know some models use mental health workers. And I know with your close connection to the hospitals, obviously a nurse is probably preferred. But if there's issues getting them, has there been any talk about looking at a somewhat different model, maybe having a nurse and a worker or that type of thing?
So I'm not opposed, and nor is the hospital, to a social worker or nurse.
Yeah, okay.
That is not, we just have not been able to hire either.
Okay.
We did have a hire. We had a nurse who had done a sick leave replacement. He went on parental for 5 weeks and came back and provided his notice.
Okay.
So, no, we are definitely not.
Okay.
The thing we are looking at most, Deputy Mayor, is we're looking for that right fit for the team, and that's something that both the hospital and the OPP are very, very cognizant about. Cornwall Police is as well. Like, they all have, when we get together as a steering committee and sort of discuss our staffing, right? That is the number one topic that comes up is, we need to make sure we have the right people, because it is a very, very unique role, not just from an officer perspective, but also from a mental health clinician perspective. It's
Yeah.
just very, very unique, the
Yeah.
work they do, right?
Yeah.
So we want to make sure.
I'm glad to hear that. Like, I know in the conversation the last couple of years, it has always been the nurse has mentioned, so I'm thrilled that it's whatever, because you're right, it's got to be the right person. It can't be just the title. The other thing is, I saw today on social media, I think it was just an OPP statement about truck traffic accidents being up like 40%. Obviously, that's for all of Ontario, but recently in South Dundas, we've had quite a few. Quite a few. I'm just wondering, is there a plan to address that, or is there?
There is. So we have regular, so first of all, and Mr. Mayor, I can probably talk a little bit about this. So we have dedicated a traffic management team. So right now I have a sergeant and 2 constables that work 7 days a week that are strictly assigned to traffic management. I'm hopeful that in the fall we'll be able to bring that. On a monthly basis, we have a regular commercial motor vehicle enforcement. So we will select an area and a direct goal or task or offense we are looking at. So for last month, in order to help tackle some of the things from the 138, we actually had our aviation services come up, up on the 138. So we had officers up the 138 strategically placed. And then we had our aviation services was monitoring the traffic flow, flying up and down the 138, and specifically we were targeting commercial motor vehicles. We do the same thing with the 401, and in next week we will be, although there is commercial motor vehicle enforcement, there's a specific campaign ongoing this week. Next week we will actually be doing we will actually be having a special campaign of our own. So
perfect.
we'll be going a little bit outside the box. So yes, we do regularly target those, and we work with our partners with MTO. So
Yep.
next week, MTO will be bringing in additional resources, and we'll have a few tricks up our sleeve.
Perfect, because I know that's been the talk around, especially our area, because it just, you can notice. And I have nothing other than to add, just to genuinely thank the men and women that you work with, both volunteer and your regular officers, for their service. Everyone likes to whine about different things, but when something happens, who do they call first? So
Well,
thank you.
thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Councilor Lewis.
First of all, Commander, I'd like to thank you for the update. And I know that the OPP are at the dock, because I drove through, I think it was on Thursday, and I've seen a beautiful gray car with a funny looking area on the back. And I said, I know what he's doing here. And he sat there most likely for about half an hour. Now, I don't know if he was in the car, if he was out walking. I couldn't see, you know, it was pretty dark in the vehicle. And I also noticed a vessel today going from island to island. I thought it was the OPP, but maybe I was mistaken. It was a big rubber vessel.
Oh, that could have been our counterparts from the RCMP.
Okay.
If it was a big rubber one, yeah, then
Oh,
it
it
was
was-
probably our counterparts.
It
from
was
the-
it was a big
Okay, yeah,
big
that was
girl.
probably the RCMP. Ours aren't that big.
But I also have to say the same as the deputy mayor. I think your staff is doing a fantastic job. They're friendly when you speak to them, so keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lewis.
Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Commander Mark. I don't have a lot of things. Just one concern still. I mentioned it last year when you were here about when the officers are going to the calls and going through the small hamlets. Like, I own a business there in Williamsburg, and even though it's getting better, but it's like it's not where it should be, because like they go through pretty quick. Now, I don't know what the calls are about, but it was just something that if you brought it forward to them again, like, they're not going to help anyone if they get killed going to a call either, right? So it's still, it got better, like at the beginning, right after we had their report and everything last year, but now it's just creeping us up that it's like they're still going through quite fast. And but other than that, I want to thank you, like your presence out there, and especially down here at the dock. Like it helps the whole community, that people feel a lot safer too, going down there at night and stuff like that. So no, I just want to thank you, and that was the only concern I had.
Well, thank you, Councillor Wells. I can certainly, I will certainly message the my sergeants again about the speeding, but I can tell you that we were also going to have Big Brother helping us out pretty soon. So the OPP will be moving all of our vehicles in East Region will be equipped with in-car cameras and body-worn. All the officers will be wearing body-worn cameras as of September. That should significantly increase that public accountability. But at the same time, what will be occurring is that camera will actually be able to read the speed limit signs within the hamlets. So as they're traveling, and if they exceed a certain speed over the posted speed limit, their camera will automatically activate. And we'll be able to see that, and we'll be able to better sort of track and educate them on, you know, why they need to bring those speeds down, especially going through the smaller hamlets.
Well, yeah, like my customer base is a lot of elderly, and they, like, it's just, I'm not saying matter of time, but like it's hard for them. Like when you hear the sirens, like they're there, like, but anyways, no, that's good. That camera thing will probably slow things up pretty good.
It should help out.
It should help out.
Councilor Mellon.
Yeah, thank you for the report. Just when you were in your report, you were saying about the presence and the, I guess, the resources that were taken by SD&G and our attachment, I guess, for the protest. Do we get compensated provincially, federally for any money that, you know, when your men and your equipment had to go to Ottawa or Cornwall?
No, so there is no billing to so our billing, the billing model in SD&G, the United Counties are responsible for the bill for all policing within the United Counties, and no, there's no direct billing, so none of that. There were special codes associated that the officers filled out every day, depending on the duty they had. So anything having to do with the Freedom Convoy was directed away from the municipal policing bill. It was downloaded onto the province, and the province, the federal government of Canada is in the process of reimbursing the OPP or the province of Ontario for the policing services we needed to provide, because Cornwall was not the only one, right? We had to provide assistance at Sarnia, Windsor. You know, we had all of the international border crossings. Were all protected by the OPP. We weren't unique in Cornwall. We were just, besides Windsor, we were the only port of entry that was affected directly by protests. But all of that will be paid back by the federal government.
Okay, and one other comment, and you're absolutely right, just your sheer presence, you know, will make a difference. Made a difference back in Holbert for some people, I was told, so they've behaved themselves and slowed down. But when we got an issue, no, it's not an issue, it is an issue. I'm just asking, I guess, if you will, when number 2 was closed down and the traffic is rerouted and we're gonna get a lot of heavier truck traffic back towards the rural portion of the, you know, back north, maybe if you just have a little bit more presence there, just because the traffic could increase, especially if we have something happen on the 401. It could become a zoo back in some of our rural roads and our municipal roads. I know where the detour is supposed to go, but let's face it, everybody's going to be taking municipal roads in any way they can to skirt around the closure on number 2 there when the culvert's replaced for a week or 2. But yeah, just, you know, make a note of that and maybe, you know, do a loop back around, just keep everybody behaved. I will, so everybody else can. Thank you for your report.
Well, thank you, Councillor, and that's something we can absolutely, something else that I'll message to the sergeant's reminder. I know that we had a fatal motor vehicle collision on the 401 this past Saturday. I was actually the one that they woke up in the morning, so I was the one that came out to oversee that scene, and that exactly what you were talking about. Once I had cleared my officers, you know, MTO had taken over the shutdown. That was one of the things that I redirected the officers to do was, you know, if on your way back, let's fly the flag through while the detours are going on, just to make sure people are behaving while they're using the smaller roadways and they're being directed off the 401.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now that Councilor Mellon has brought it up, there has been the issues of the accidents on the 401 causing closures, and the construction that's happening on our 401 at the same time are causing some traffic challenges with our roundabout. And, you know, it's, I don't know if we'll ever come to that point, but the challenge sometimes is once traffic starts getting into that roundabout, nobody else can come in, right? Because that's the way the rules are. And I did have someone call me and said they were tried to be nice and let someone in and got honked at, but I know that I voiced my concern with county staff, but that impending road closure at County Road 2 down the road toward Aircoil will probably cause some issues. So perhaps talking with the county engineer and making sure that if you guys are, if your staff are needed, then you can work together on any issues that do develop. It may all fly together, but better to be prepared than not.
Well, we're certainly going to have, Mr. Mayor, we're certainly going to have our regular Traffic Safety Council meeting where we meet with MTO and the United Counties, and it's certainly, I've made a note of it, of a topic that I can bring up and see if we can come up with a coordinated solution.
Okay, and with that, I'd like to thank you for coming. I'd like to thank all your staff for the work you do every day to serve and protect the residents of SDG and our broader base. And if I don't see you in the future, thank you from a personal basis that, you know, the work you have done in the short time you've been here is certainly a blessing. You know, we had some good inspectors, I'm not denying that, but they never came here. You have come here, and that shows your leadership in running your detachment. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, councillors and staff, for having me this evening. I wish everyone I hope everyone has a great summer, and behave if you're at the Tubies, because I'll be walking around.
When you behave yourself up at Glengarry Highland Games, because I've seen what happens there on a Friday night.
I think I'll be happy to get out of there. I'm not staying for Friday night. I've been there, got a few T-shirts.
You send the officers you don't like that day.
The ones I do can come down here with me.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, you.
All right, thank you very much.
So we'll move on to action requests. The first one is P 2022-16, the Aircoil Lawn Bowling Shed.
Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Mellon. That council accept report PE 2022-16 to allow the Iroquois Lawn Bowling Club to move forward with the construction of their storage shed as outlined.
David, welcome. Oh, no, you can't pan it off. No, I'm going to allow you to start, and then you can always go back to your CAO if that's necessary. How's that?
Fair enough. Good evening, Council. So in front of you is a report tonight, a bit of a follow-up from our June 27th meeting. We had some discussion about the Iroquois Lawn Bowling's proposal to build a new storage shed. So staff have reviewed all of Council's comments that day. We've sort of worked out a plan that falls within our policies. The only requests that would come up, I've sort of outlined what requires Council's approval within my report here. So first off, they'd obviously need Council's approval to build the shed on municipal property. The approval of sole sourcing a contractor, and then to keep the ball rolling, I've put in the approval for the clerk and myself to execute the contract with the contractor. That would just, mostly because our next meeting, as you alluded to, Mr. Mayor, is until August, and I want to make sure that we have a contract in place as soon as possible, just to protect us and protect everybody involved. So the discussion that was had with the donor group is that they basically requiring them to sort of get a prime contractor, a GC, to oversee the project. The municipality would retain that GC ourselves. That GC would have a contract between us, and that would be it. There is the involvement of Mr. Ross, who's previously, he was looking to be the GC of the project. He's going to take his thoughts, put them into a detailed specification, so that way we'll build that into the contract documents. So we have the drawings from the lawn bowling group that they've already prepared of the building they want. This is Mr. Ross getting his colors, the siding, all that type of stuff involved in a written specification that would be involved in that contract. Then the project's sort of laid out with the lawn bowling and Mr. Ross doing a little bit of the legwork there, and then staff are sort of taking over at just basically executing the contract and overseeing the project. So it reduces staff's involvement there. Outside of that, there's the CRA donation receipt. Obviously, now the project is being managed by the municipality. I'm going to probably recommend that we collect 50% of the donations ahead of time and then get the final 50% at the end, mostly out of two reasons. One, if there's any price changes. If we collect 100% at the beginning, now we're chasing a little bit at the end. The other one is, as much as there is one significant donor in Ross Video or Mr. Ross, there will be other donors as well, not as significant of donors, but in the lawn bowling group, there are other people who want to make donations and want to get a CRA receipt. So this allows us to collect half the funds up front, have a contract to collect the remaining funds, and still have the opportunity for other people to donate to the project. Outside of that, I'll let Shannon speak a little bit to the procurement policy, but I think that's the only other item outlined in the report.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So outlined in the report is Council does have a few options when it comes to procuring the general contractor. Council has the authority to waive the procurement policy and allow this appointment. Council can also look at sole sourcing if there is a benefit to the municipality. When I talked to our auditor, MNP, they are in agreement with our process of how we're doing it, as far as we're going to be the ones managing the project from start to finish. There'll be no involvement from any outside agencies. To David's point, The specs will be provided to us. We will tender it, or we will get the pricing. We will follow our procurement policy when it comes to managing the project. And then we will be responsible for making sure that the funds are allocated through the municipal bank account. At that time, we will then provide donation receipts. So our auditor is comfortable in the process of if council decides to go down that route.
Mayor, comments, questions, concerns?
No, just thank you for addressing, I feel you've addressed the concerns I had with this. I like whenever we can go back, figure it out, and come back and be able to move forward. So no, I'm good with it.
Councilor Lewis?
No, I think you come up with the answers that I was looking for, so I have no problem with it.
Councilor Mellon?
Giddy up and go.
Councilor Wells?
I hate to see if this building was any bigger than it is for what we're going through for this, but anyways, we have to stick to the things. Shannon, maybe you can answer us about, so you want whoever's donating, Mr. Ross or who else, to give you guys, like, let's say it's gonna be 15,000 build this building or whatever it's gonna be, right?
Yep.
So you want him to give you the money up front. So say if John Doe's the contractor, so will they be invoicing South Dundas directly for it? Okay.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor Byvelds, to Councillor Wells. Yeah, so there's an advantage of going through us. Number one is to issue donation receipts, it needs to go through our municipal bank account. But also there's the HST that's saved, right, when it's billed through
Yeah.
us as well. So they'll be saving the HST as well as providing a donation receipt based on the price of the full price of the project.
Yep, no, like there's, the only thing with us paying, right? Like we're not gonna get in on this little garden shed, like hold back on whoever's building it and that, like when you guys sign off, you pay the contractor, correct?
That'll be outlined in the contract. and
Okay.
maybe
Yeah,
David-
I'll do it as per my
Okay.
typical contracts. I like to put a 10% lien holdback just to protect us in case the contractor does have any subs that he doesn't pay. At least we're a little bit protected there, but other than that, I won't put anything else in it.
Yeah, because this is a different situation when, like like
It's just-
basically,
yeah.
like a garden shed.
It's
at the end of
I'll
the
put a
day.
45-day, 10% lien holdback on it, but that's about it.
Yeah. Which, okay, I'm good.
From what I see, the drawing's a little bit bigger than a garden shed. Probably it'd
Well,
be the
I-
fanciest garden shed in South Dundas when it's done.
I've seen the drawing,
How-
but
how
anyway.
does that sound? Okay,
Leave it at that.
my comment on the procurement policy and making it work, it still sounds a little loosey-goosey. It's like you got a situation, so you look at it and say, how do I make it work? And I'm not comfortable with it, but as long as we don't get in the habit of this, I guess that's fair enough. We have a procurement policy for a reason. We are authorized by the municipal act to do so.
Correct.
Sole sourcing certainly allowed, but usually it has real good reasons.
Yeah.
As I said, it's a little loosey-goosey when it comes to reason. I like your idea of getting at least 50%. Will the donor be committed no matter what? And, you know, and this was what we discussed when we did the campground building, is that, you know, Mr. Ross wanted to pay, and he did pay up front, but if something happened to Mr. Ross, then who pays the bill? And I know that sounds very morbid, especially now that his wife has passed, and I do extend my sympathies to John and his family because of that. However, he is of that age too, and we never know. Nobody knows, and it sounds like you're covering everything, but if he pays half of it, something happens, or if something happens in any circumstance, how do you get him to commit the second half?
So, Mr. Mayor, I think the donation's likely coming from Ross Video in this situation, so our agreement for the 50% and then agreement to pay the rest would actually probably be with Ross Video.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's a different bear. That doesn't die. Okay. I know you think I'm being a little fussy, but,
I was gonna agree with you.
okay, fair enough.
But what
Oh, I know, you seen your head go up, Councilor Wells, I thought the worst of it,
But
sorry.
you can't, no. At the end, like you can, when it comes to getting money too, like it's got to go in the paper for state, right? So
Yeah.
legally, we could get it that way, but we're not. That's Ross video. We're good. We're good to go.
Okay, I just have to draw those concerns. 'Cause
Yep.
I'm just here protecting the municipality. I'm not being begrudging anybody. It didn't matter whether it's John Ross or John Doe or whatever. If something happened to that, the donation, the person was A, not satisfied, or B, something definitely happened to them, where are we getting the rest of the money? And that's not the, then it ends up coming back to the municipality and council and making up the rest. So, anything further from any member of council? Seeing none, I'll order the motion. Those in favor, opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you, David, for now. Next report is TS 2022-07, civic addressing.
Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept the proposed updates to the civic addressing system as presented, and that the clerk be authorized to prepare the necessary bylaw for the next regular meeting on August 8th.
Jeff, welcome.
Actually, Leslie's going to talk with us when I'm with the supporting cast.
Oh.
So by way-
Okay, fair enough. I'll look at the reports better and see who's on the top, but I was under the impression you did most of the legwork and she did the paperwork, and that's a good
We'll keep it that way.
good way of looking at the situation. How's that? Because if you made the paperwork up and looked this pretty, I'd be questioning it. And you did a real good job. Go ahead.
So by way of background, at the last meeting on June 27th, Councillor Wells had asked that the civic addressing bylaw and respective operational process be added to the agenda. So as it was alluded to at the meeting, Mayor Byvelds had indicated that our current bylaw is pretty brief in nature, and council was interested in perhaps expanding the scope of the bylaw based on a concern where a landowner of a residential vacant lot was unable to make application for a civic address in our municipality based on our current procedures. So at that meeting, council unanimously supported expanding the issuance of the civic address outside the scope of the building permit process and directed us here this evening with some proposed amendments. So included in the package is a draft expanded bylaw on the civic addressing program in our municipality. And the intent of this expansion is to provide for risk mitigation and safety of residents and contractors on vacant lots. So what we're proposing is our civic addressing program essentially be divided into three kind of tiers. One, for new addresses, the civic address would be obtained through the building department for new numbers or property owners developing their lot. Civic addresses could be obtained through the transportation department for property owners of an undeveloped lot. And civic addresses obtained through the transportation department for property owners on agricultural lands through the Emily 911 farm project. In addition, historically, we have purchased and installed two different variations of signs and posts in our municipality, one being plastic, one being metal. This is cumbersome and somewhat inefficient. In addition, currently from a procurement perspective, it's been difficult to procure some of the plastic signs. So on Jeff's recommendation, we are looking to move forward with just the metal signs. This also is quite, I think it was about almost $70 cost savings to move forward with the metal signs as opposed to the plastic. In the report, there was also a summary of what other municipalities within SG&G are doing as it relates to who can apply for a civic address and the cost. So as it indicates, we're kind of in the middle of the range if council approves expanding the scope, and our costs as well at $125 plus HST for installation of a civic address. So essentially what we were looking to do included is to have an undeveloped lot policy similar to the Emily 911 farm project and an acknowledgement form that would essentially acknowledge that people that were applying for a vacant lot civic address acknowledge that it's only for emergency purposes. It does not authorize them to further develop the lot without appropriate approvals. It does not allow for the permission of collection of waste, household waste. It also does not constitute the approval for an entrance, and it does not guarantee that access is inadequate for emergency vehicles, and it requires that the landowner ensure the signage remains visible. One more thing before we move on to the amendments to the bylaw is Councillor Lewis at the last meeting had indicated or brought forward a good suggestion in that we aren't consistent in the municipality with 911 civic addressing on municipal properties. So Jeff had already started some of the legwork on that project. I know not many of our cemeteries are included. So included in the draft bylaw is a provision of all the municipal properties. And what we were looking to do is come up with a list, because this will be, it will cost money to install these signs on our property, but bring that forward to you in a future report of all the municipal property that currently do not have a Civic 911 address, so that you're aware, and then authorize staff to proceed with the installation. So I think I'll leave it at that. I won't go through the draft bylaw in its entirety. It just includes kind of the provisions of what I've spoke on. And what we would recommend is that the bylaw be brought forward at the August meeting if council is acceptable with this.
Okay, before we go on the council discussion, the current rate of $125 in HST, at 100%, 75%, 50% of cost.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the $125 presently using plastic, we're running at about $112.50 for plastic posts. Doesn't leave much room for staff time and vehicle costs to go and install it.
Okay.
That's why Clerk Drennan and myself kind of chose the metal route with buying the aluminum posts, the paddles. We placed the numbers on the paddles. We're around $65.75 for the post and paddle itself. So that's leaving us a little room for staff time. So we're definitely coming out, we're covering our costs at the $125 presently.
Okay, that's good information to know, to be honest, because I'm going to go around and ask council to say whether they want plastic or metal. Much as I like the plastic and I have no idea how Matilda went and chose that. From a cost point of view, you certainly bring a case forward for the standard Williamsburg sign, as I call them. So, Council Wells, you brought this forward. Great idea. Go ahead.
Yeah, I read the draft. I think it's excellent, it's what I asked for. And Councillor Lewis, I think it's another thing like all our stuff, so everything's good. And as far as the sign goes, I would definitely go with steel myself. Not the cost is one thing, but it's more durable than the plastic, so steel. And other than that, this draft, I have nothing to add or take away from it, so.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, I mean, there's a cost savings of approximately $70. Right now, our profit margin is about $13 with the plastic.
Excuse me,
It's
Councillor
nice to have the
Councillor
youth-
Mellon, that's not including the labor to put it
Yeah, I know.
installed.
That's
So
just-
there's don't talk profit margin.
Well, okay, just cost, our cost,
Fair,
okay,
okay,
our
fair
cost to
enough.
buy the sign.
Thank
And
you.
I could see $13 isn't enough for probably our guys or men and women to go out and put the sign up. I've seen some of the metal ones that will get rusty over time, and that's a concern. I'm also concerned that, you won't have uniformity. You'll be, if there's a new house go up in between, you're gonna have plastic and metal, plastic. I would go, I'm maybe stretching it. Under 4.1, 4.10, we're gonna identify all the parks, beaches, water access points, et cetera, et cetera. I could see us using metal on them. Residential, even though it's more money, I would much sooner stay with the plastic.
Can I cut you off for a second? Not cut you off, but
Yeah.
you have to understand right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, we do the plastic in the Matilda side, we do the steel one on the Williamsburg side. So we do kind of
Oh, we
discriminate
do,
here.
Williamsburg got metal?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta open my eyes. I never drove through Williamsburg, I never noticed that.
Well, you gotta come to the better side of the
Yeah, I know,
better
I gotta
half
get
of
on-
South
gotta get on
Dundas
that
once in a
border.
while.
They don't
Councillor Wells will take you a tour of Froburn someday.
Road trip.
Go ahead.
So I'll add a little bit more to that. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Mellon, we had to wait a significant amount of time to receive plastic paddles. We actually had to wait so long that we had to change the design of plastic paddles. Instead of going with a 4-inch high paddle, we had to go to a 6-inch high paddle because of fabricating, because of receiving products. So now you see plastic that are 4 inches. The newest ones are 6 inches in a row. So there's no uniformity when it comes to that. It was based off of availability, and I was getting a stack on my desk like yay high on Civic numbers, and we just couldn't wait any longer. So we had to change that part of the process also. So we have to, ordering 2 separate products, we're working against ourselves is what we're doing.
I'll go with the metal. I don't know if we need to have $70, like, are we gonna still charge 125 then? It's reasonable, I guess. Okay, drive on. Go with the metal. I like everything about it. Just the whole, the whole game plan, it includes Project Emily, it includes cemeteries, it includes, on service lots or on, as Councilor Wells brought it up and Councilor Lewis brought up about our other areas. Okay, yeah, okay. We got a lot of money to spend on signs on areas that beaches and parks and cemeteries. Okay, grab on. Metal, I'll shut up.
Councilor Lewis.
I think the bang for your buck is metal. I know in the wintertime, when that plastic gets cold, sometimes it gets very brittle. And I know you guys have or your men have already gone out and replaced some of the plastic Civic numbers. And I think $125 for a Civic number is very reasonable. You can't send a guy out or 2 guys out and not make nothing. That don't make sense. I'm sorry. So I would definitely go with metal.
Deputy Mayor?
I love when staff work together. My question was the cost recovery, so that's, the question's been answered. I'm good with metal.
Okay. I don't have an issue with metal. It's unfortunate because I do like I live on both sides. So the plastic looks good on a nice residential lot. The steel one on the farm lot really doesn't matter. And the Williamsburg ones have endured very well. I just came from North Dundas. You live in North Dundas. You know that some of the ones the old ones, somebody can't even read for the salt corrosion. So obviously ours were of a better design. The question I have, and the bylaw is good, I'm not here to pick it apart. 4.15 is where the specifications of where the Civic number goes on new lots. Is there any concern with some of the old lots where they were conveniently placed so the person that mowed the lawn didn't have to worry about it because they were in a place that something else was? Okay.
No.
Because that's what happened a lot. I know that, I know the employee did it at the farm and there was a bell box. The bell box is still there. That's literally where the sign was, but it's 50 feet away from the driveway. Now the mailbox has the number on it too now, but I mean, they weren't consistent in those days. They were more concerned of where it had to go. But that was the beginning of the process, and at that time, not everybody had a cell phone in their pocket. Not everybody thought that 911 was a necessary item because everybody knew where everybody lived. But I'm sure that those in fire services and ambulance are really thankful that those numbers are there somewhere. So, other than that, that's my concerns have been addressed. Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, one more, it's just on the installation itself. With the metal paddles, we are gonna be reducing down to one paddle. So the old, I don't wanna reference the old Williamsburg, but the old Williamsburg Township used 2 metal paddles on a single post. Now we're gonna be reducing it down to 1 metal paddle with numbers on both sides of that single metal paddle fastened like a flag, like the way the plastic signs are. So we're gonna see a cost reduction there with the number of metal paddles. Why, I can't understand why they used 2 metal paddles and installed them that way, but
Because when you order pizza, you look out your window and tell them your Civic number if you forgot it. That was the reason. Just saying.
that could work. But we are gonna reduce it down to 1 paddle and make it face the road.
I do believe when the original paddles came out, there was probably some government money to spur the whole thing on, because that was the initial run, and knowing the councils and the Reeves at that time, they were always finding some government money. If government says you're gonna do, thou shalt do, then thou shalt pay, and most of the time they found the money, and Council Mellon, I'm still surprised that Matilda Township went to the fancy dancy plastic the first time.
We're pretty good up there.
I won't comment on the condition of the roads you brought over.
Thank you.
It's the other side. Okay, with that, anything else?
Just
Go ahead.
one other thing I got thinking here. With the old plastic ones, you had to send the backhoe out too, didn't you? To put them in?
You had to so it's 3 units per, you had to hand dig.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
With the metal
significant
ones, you
hole.
should be able to just pound them
With the
in.
metal ones, you have to be careful with
Well,
locates,
maybe make
right?
a hole first for the
Yeah.
bar. Okay, well, it
Yeah.
should be, okay, yeah, it should be quicker.
But we
cost
have
saving.
been using the water department's little vac trailer. And with that pressure washer system with the suction hose, it's just perfect diameter. They clean out the hole, jam in the new sign, put a little stone dust around it, and
I love it.
we're off and running very fast and
Yeah, but
Quickly.
also to a point of saving money, you can go and buy a post for steel post, and about 4 whacks, you're down.
you're right.
Just-
And you
just
can go right
say-
through a bell line also.
Till you go through the bell line.
Good
Yeah,
play.
that's fine, but it just, you're driving around you're pulling a piece of equipment, just saying.
Understood.
Okay,
It's a balancing act, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
I've paid broken bell line bills.
Yeah, especially when the mower takes one down. Anyway, nothing else? All heard the motion, those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Councilor Wells. Down to bylaws, 2022-83, elimination of vacancy tax rebate.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that bylaw number 2022-83, being a bylaw to eliminate the vacancy rebate, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Lachlan, welcome.
Oh, yeah, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. We brought this forward last meeting. We had a brief conversation, so bringing it back, not much to this report other than to get your recommendation. To summarize, it would start in 2023. We will communicate to those who had it in the past so that they're aware that we will not be doing this. Should council approve it this evening, approximately $9,500 of taxation on average is, I think Mr. Mason mentioned, it's not really savings, it's just we're not giving it back. So it's a word choice semantics, but it's, we're not going to give it, we're just going to keep it. So however you want to word that, we will have that much more for municipal purposes. And this bylaw would enforce that starting 2023.
Okay, any comment from CEO or yourself that we're doing a bylaw that's effective in the next term of council? I know technically you can't go back on this year,
Right.
but you need to be, I guess, ready for the next term, but, you know, no disrespect to the next term, but we're kind of imposing something on them.
I guess ultimately maybe the clerk can provide some context. Ultimately, the new council could come in and rescind this bylaw if they chose that they wanted to keep the vacancy rebate in check. I think what the vacancy rebate does, and I know my time as treasurer, is it gives that incentive for that business owner to not sit on the property. It gets them to get the property out there, hopefully get, whether it's tenants or get it occupied. And I think it's fair across the board, because usually when you get the reduction, it gets reverted back to the residential tax base because it's the highest. So I think To your point, Mayor, you're absolutely right. We could go ahead and put this in, and a new council could come in and rescind it. But I believe that you're setting up the next council for the better.
Right thing.
Correct.
Okay. Lachlan?
I could also make a point to bring it up to the next council in that one sitting
Yep.
and say if you wish to rescind it, this is what the conversation was before.
I think it's fair. I personally, I believe it's the right thing to do. I think we've had a discussion and fair enough. But we all know that new councils can always override old council's direction if they so choose, but I wouldn't believe this would be a wise thing to do.
Agreed.
Any comment, question, concern from any member of council on this? Seeing none, all in motion, those in favor, opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you. Next one, 2022-84, Morseburg Viewing Platform Contract.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2022-84, being a bylaw to execute an agreement with J&M Contracting Corp. For the Morseburg Viewing Platform Construction Services, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
David?
Thank you, Mayor. So this was brought forward last meeting as an action report. The only update I'd give is that we have received the funding from the Lions. Other than that, it's our standard contract, and the clerk and I will work on executing it with the contractor.
Okay, any comments, questions, concerns from the remaining members of council? All heard in motion, those in favor, opposed, if any, motion carries. Madam Clerk, who moved it and seconded it? Sorry, I didn't squiggle it off for you.
Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Mellon.
Okay, thank you. It was carried, if I didn't say that. So consent agenda, please.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that all items listed under general consent section of the agenda be adopted as presented, save and except for items 9A and B be moved to discussion.
So tonight, what's left on here is a key information report on the road closure and encroachment agreement on 3535 Bank Street, building statistics from the building department, and the minutes from the Aircoil Waterfront Committee. All heard motion, those in favor, opposed, if any, motion carries. Okay. Boards, committees, discussion items. No county council, cemetery board. Oh, I will say something about county council, sorry, Council Wells. We did have a special meeting in June to have a discussion on our strategy or plan for hiring a CAO. As the council knows, our current CEO, Tim Simpson, is going to retire at the end of the year. Council moved and seconded a motion to form a committee chaired by the warden and two councillors of her choosing, which were Councillor Fraser and Councillor Jaworski, to hire a firm for a hiring firm to guide them and come back to County Council with the recommendation on who should be our CEO for 2023 and onward. So that's where that stands. Other than that, there was no other business at that meeting. Now cemetery board.
No meeting, Mayor.
Aircoil District Business Group, we didn't have a meeting, but we did have a successful launch of the giant Adirondack chair that makes all the other South Dundas one little miniatures right current. It's a red one that sits on the south side of the flagpole buoy in that island that the business group is proposing to beautify. It does look good. I think the picture in the paper said it all, if those seen it. I really thank Candace and especially Candace and the group for spearheading what they're doing in Iroquois. Council Wells has already, said quite a bit on what they've done there and where Morseburg needs to go. And, Morseburg's had its challenges, but Iroquois has had their challenges in the past too, and it's working well. And I wish them all the best of luck in the future. Morseburg BIA.
No, they didn't say when we're having our next meeting. But I want you to note that the students from the chamber, they are cleaning up the islands. I think they had 3 islands cleaned as of Friday.
Seen that today.
Yeah,
It's a start.
it's a start. I told them to stay away from the far end for now because there's some poison ivy down there and we want to get that out before the students get down there.
Okay. South Nation Conservation Authority, did you have a meeting?
No, it didn't.
Oh, good. Any comments from the authority right now?
Not much. I was in contact with them last week about 2 creeks. I had a couple people call about, it's not open yet officially. They were going to do an assessment of it at the end of last week, and they were hoping to have it open the first of this week. I drove by tonight. It still isn't open officially, but they had to go in and do an assessment, and they had to do, I think, some work. And they're short-staffed because of the storm in May wreaked havoc in a lot of their other, I guess if you will, more used parks. Well, that doesn't mean 2 creeks shouldn't get a little bit of attention. So hopefully they'll have 2 creeks open in this week.
Okay. It has gotten drier, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
and-
I do not venture back there because I don't have enough deep woods off to get 1 kilometer
know.
down that baby this time of year. Just being honest. And then there's the tick situation, which is always a challenge.
Yeah.
Morsey Waterfront Committee?
Nothing to report.
Aircoil Waterfront Committee did have a meeting. The minutes are within the council package, going ahead with their sign, their placard, their signs on posts, can't remember the name, and we're still going ahead with a wildflower garden eventually down there. Believe it or not, Keith Poor and I went down there to scout it out the day after the meeting, and I thought, it can't be wet anymore. And it's still wet down there, even as dry as it's gotten. So it's a challenging situation, but we'll see where they go. South Branch Community Fund?
Yeah, actually, we did, Mayor Byval's, there was, I think it was Friday, we had a vote on the revised Matilda Memorial Recreation application. They gave us a revised and gave us some more information on that, and we had a virtual vote, I guess, if you will. And it was unanimously approved, their application. They asked me to present it or bring it up tonight so that they can get moving forward. I told them they would have to send it in because we can't approve anything unless it's in our agenda. I will reconfirm that with them tomorrow, but I told them they would still have to send in some kind of minutes of the virtual vote.
Yeah. Okay, good to hear. Carmen House?
Nothing to
yet,
report,
because we're
no.
in Dundas County Archives, no meeting. Tourism Advisory.
Well, we did have Theodore Tugboat visit.
Any
It was
numbers? Any
busy.
guess of numbers?
I'd say in the thousands. Like,
Yeah.
I was
I
down
wasn't
both
here,
days.
so
It
that's
was
why I'm
very,
asking.
very busy. The water levels got messed around with, so we weren't able to have people on the tug, which was kind of annoying. But the people I saw for both the day loved it. And the comments and the families and the seniors with their families and, even people that didn't have kids but grew up with it. It was really well received, and I had talked to the staff and the commissioners that were hired, and they didn't get too many complaints. People understood why it needed to be blocked off for a bit. I mean, I'm sure there were people that were unhappy, but it's a safety thing. It meant that the families could kind of move around that space without too much worry. So it was great, and the dockside had a lineup all the way out all day. Like, they were just
They ran out of stuff,
phenomenally
probably.
busy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was good.
That's good, and I will comment, the editorial in the Morrisburg Leader was very favorable to not only the Tourism Advisory Committee, but all of council, that we actually didn't just say tourism happened on its own. We put some work into it, and the committee, I will give the committee full credit for a lot of it. However, it takes a council to to show that leadership, and we did that, and I certainly hope that the next council continues on with it. That and economic development are very important in South Dundas, and we made sure it was, and glad we did.
Yep.
Saying that, economic development,
I have nothing to report for the next two committees.
doctor advisory, no committee, okay. Not saying nothing. We have a new government now, maybe we can get some
Yeah,
action
it's the
done.
same as the other
Yeah,
one.
we know how. Well, as I told the commander, you know, it's post-election, so it's gonna be a challenge, and I know that they're trying to get more money out of the feds for healthcare, and fair enough, I'm not disagreeing, but I have a family member going through the healthcare system right now, and I'm working on losing a lot of hairs, and what red is left is gonna be awful gray by the time I get through it, and it's unfortunate. It doesn't work as good as it needs to work for the people who really need the care, and that bothers me, and I know sometimes it does take time, but, and staffing challenges can be part of that, and that's very unfortunate. It's everywhere in that regard, but we've had, you know, public commissions on healthcare, and I know Roy Romano did one in Ontario a number of years ago, and I think that baby's laying there making dust, and somebody's got to do something. It's just, yeah, it takes money, I understand that, but, you know, we have a Dundas Manor that I almost cringed when I read it. They're hoping to get a shovel in the ground next year, and, you know, there's hardworking people doing it, but it's been in the works 4 years, and here we sit.
Well,
and I know 2 people in my family and need it yesterday.
Well, and I will say with the doctor advisory committee, the slowness and the quietness now, as we end this term of council, we fought the good fight. I mean, you know, going to government and saying, hey, we have an empty clinic. Can we do the nurse practitioner clinic to kind of supplement healthcare and help our senior population, help, you know, kids' mental health and stuff like that. I mean, we asked, we'll keep asking,
Oh,
but
sure.
if the answer is no, there's not much we can do. There's really not much we can do.
Yeah,
So-
well, and to be honest, you know, it seems our new MPP is very sincere. We did have a meeting with
Yeah.
him, and he's got a little job higher up in the food chain with Marilyn Fulton, and that's good. That means that he may be listened to, and that's a good thing, because that was my biggest fear, a rookie stuck in the back corner, and
I mean,
you're told
our
to vote, this is the way it is,
yeah,
and that's all
our
you get to
no
do.
did come from Minister Elliott, though. That's pretty much as high as you could go in the last food chain. So
Well, we have a new minister now, but I think she's even tougher, just to let you know. She was Solicitor
we'll
General.
try. We'll try.
You have to keep trying. If you don't try, then, I remember being in this job before, and you know, you try, and you try, and you try, and you think you're going nowhere, and all of a sudden, it comes, so. Or
Well,
they recognize you're trying for something else, at least you got an offset.
I will say this, maybe Shannon, we should get together just quickly
Yep.
and put a letter and send it to the new
Absolutely.
minister
Yep.
with the request again. So, yeah, I mean, we're trying.
I'll set a meeting up next week.
All you can do is try.
Okay, at this time, I'm gonna call for a 10-minute break, because there's a lot of stuff here to talk about, and I think now's a time to do so. So we'll cut off for 10 minutes and then come back. And we're back. So we're moving on to item B, which is key information report on the municipal logo refresh and redraw. And Kaylin coming in, and there she is. Welcome South Dundas Council tonight, Kaylin.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Can't hear you though.
No. Can you hear me now?
No. No, the technicians are coming from the back. Yeah, we know that, but she can't tell you how to do it either because she can't talk to you. Come in on cell phone. As long as-
Yes?
It's real low.
I can't see you now. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Okay. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Thanks, staff, for fixing it up. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to share my screen with you to get started. Can you all see that?
Yep.
All right. So I'm coming to you tonight with a bit of a update to our logo that we're hoping to do. So I'm going to throw around a few words at you tonight, and I want to make sure that we're really distinctively clear about the differences. So you're going to hear me say a redraw, a refresh, and a redesign, and they are all different. And so if there's any issue with clarity there, you let me know. You're probably asking yourselves, why are we doing this now? So I will explain that before we get into it. So we had to do a redraw of the logo anyway. Via the report, you'll have seen that in any kind of modern digital graphic design that you do, you need to have certain types of file sizes and file types in order to have really crisp, clear logos, whether it be on signs or any kind of materials that you're printing. Since I've been here, I know that I run into the issue a number of times where we've been dealing with consultants or we're dealing with somebody who's putting something together for us and they're asking for vector files of our logo and we don't have the right type of file. Same thing with the size of the file. And so what that means is that when you blow up the logo large on something that's printed or something like that, it becomes blurry and the edges aren't crisp and clean and it just doesn't quite represent us the way that we want to be represented. So the redraw, which is what this is, had to happen regardless. And so when I met with the designer who was performing the redraw, we sort of chatted a bit about the logo and discussed the idea of doing a bit of a refresh. So what that means and whether that is different from a redesign is that a redesign would have been like a branding exercise. I brought that to council's attention in 2020. That's a very expensive exercise to do because you have to change everything basically because you're getting a new logo basically. Obviously there's not an appetite for that. It's not something that we want to be doing in the near future. So we thought there might be an opportunity to do a refresh. And so what that means is that we're keeping the same logo. We're just giving a bit of a facelift is what we're going to call that. So what I'm looking for tonight is some guidance on moving forward with that if council is amenable. And then we can kind of go from there. So this is where we sit now. These are some of our neighbors and some other local organizations. And right now, we're not really standing out. This logo has been with us since amalgamation. It's gone through a couple color changes, but it hasn't really had anything other than that. In kind of standard branding maintenance practices, you do want to keep your logo updated, fresh, modern. So this is kind of where we are now. So what we're presenting is a logo that is the same logo again, just a little bit different, and I'll outline those differences. And so these were the options that our designer came up with. As you can see, it's still the water and land lines that we all kind of know and love, and it's just a little bit updated, creating some space, and also adding some other colors into the logo. What this does, for anybody who's not a brand or communications junkie like myself, it just gives us some flexibility, some uniqueness. It makes us a little bit brighter, a little bit more interesting to the eye, and all of those things really play a role in our tourism, in our economic development, in our community engagement, image and how people feel about us, even if it's subconsciously when they look at our logo, is definitely something that does happen. You may not think that it happens, but even you, when you see our logo, have thoughts and feelings about it. So these were the options that the designer presented. When it comes to the color options, my recommendation is that we go with B, which you'll see in the top row in the center. This option, as I outlined in the report, really does benefit us the most. The colors work well together from a color theory standpoint. Again, all that's outlined in the report. So from a kind of a technical marketing standpoint, they work really well. But I also think that they work well for us just in general because it gives us a little bit more, like I said, flexibility, a little bit more uniqueness. The color, the secondary color of that kind of greeny blue is not used in any of our neighbors, which is kind of nice because there's a lot of colors that you see used by everybody around here. We all kind of have similar styles. So this is something that kind of sets us apart, which is nice. And it also just provides a bit of brightness. Which is why I outlined in the kind of the top three of the screen that are sort of the three that I would say are the in first, second, third place. It adds up brightness, but it's also colors that work well together. They're called analogous colors, and so it just means that they mesh well to the eye, even if you don't understand the technical theory of that side of things. So these are the text options. Again, in the report, it talks about this. So the biggest thing here is that with our current logo, and you can actually see on the PowerPoint at the bottom corner there, our South Dundas words get lost, especially if we're working on smaller scale. So you almost can't read them sometimes. They're technically not accessible in some situations because the text is so small, because it just gets sized down and we're kind of stuck within that range of the square. So all we're doing here is we're just kind of reformatting things a little bit, just so that we have a little bit more wiggle room, different variations of that. So, on the website or on different materials, we can use the different stacked horizontal options. So this is where we want to be. If you compare this to this first slide where we were at, it does make us stand out a little bit more. Again, that color is not used by anybody else. It makes us more modern, kind of brings us up into the 21st century of marketing and branding and that kind of thing, while still maintaining our current image, because we're not changing the bones of it. So here's the concept in action. This is a couple different variations of what we might use it for, like a community guide or on some kind of report cover or something like that. Again, all kind of pieces to our branding that just make it look a little bit nicer and bring us into a good image, I guess, let's say. So this is a recommendation. Obviously, you may have different opinions. I'm happy to answer questions. But yeah, so happy to hear what you say, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks, Kaylin. So just to clarify, the recommendation is using B, correct?
B.
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 Okay.
The graphic that you saw in the PowerPoint throughout with that color combination is the recommendation.
Okay. Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor. No, I do like the contrast, and I do actually like the B choice. I remember when I saw this logo 20 years ago for the first time, I won't tell you what I said. I was like, what is that? And then someone explained what, someone explained.
Right here.
Someone
And you want to
explained-
wear it.
Well, I think my challenge was if you have to get an explanation, logos generally speaking should be self-explanatory, you know, whenever you're branding things. But I have grown to love it. And I do like this. I do like your color choice for B. I like the fact that you did the where we are and where we want to be, because it does jump off the page. It kind of tends to blur in. One question though, I think this is great. I just think when we talk about usage, like corporate usage versus, say you mentioned tourism and economic development, I think the people that wanted the solid color previously recognized that if you're producing clothing or something like that, the cost with double colors increases. So we may want to entertain having kind of a policy over, like the corporate logo would potentially, like if you think about the water towers, right? People are going to ask us, are you going to go up and repaint the water towers? But if you have that corporate logo identity that is the more muted logo versus a tourism brochure where you may have that, you want that pop, or online you want that pop. I think if we use it correctly, it's going to be a really good tool. And like I said, some organizations use that corporate versus the tourism, you know, the community branding versus the corporate branding, which technically is more muted. You know, because I'm not expecting with this logo change that you would go out and get rid of all the envelopes, all the you know, those are questions that will be asked. And I would assume actually with envelopes and letterhead and stuff like that, that we would still be responsible and perhaps keep it at the muted logo for stuff like that. That's just going to be recycled. And then whenever you're talking about online or the AcDev type brochures, stuff where we want to, you know, make a bold statement, then you use this as kind of your feeder logo, if that makes sense. Right? Because that's going to be the question. With envelopes and letterhead, once you add a second color, the price is going to go up, and it will over time have a significant cost bearing, I would think. So my only recommendation is think this is wonderful. It'll do exactly what we want it to do, but it needs to only be doing those things in places where it needs to do, and where it doesn't, keep it the bland logo like water towers and letterhead. So.
Oh, Kaylin, you got something to say? Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, thank you. No,
My
just
fault.
through you. I wanted to address a few things just so that everybody else is clear. Yes, so part of branding means that when you have colors in your brand, you can use them singularly. So there would be like a white version of this, there would be a black version of this for different scenarios. And then again, you can use a singular color. If there isn't a big cost difference, I would recommend us using the this version for our letterheads on new envelopes and stuff like that. If there is, then yeah, that's absolutely, like, we would just go with sort of the singular color option. And I do also want to clarify that and make it very clear that by doing this route, none of our signs, any of our stuff that has our logo on it currently doesn't need to change. That will change over the course of, 20 or so years, or I don't work in those departments. I don't know how long it takes for a sign to deteriorate, but that's when the changeover would happen, kind of thing. So it doesn't, there's no cost or financial impact on changing those things over. So like the water tower, all of that kind of stuff all stays the same because it's still the square. Like it hasn't changed that
Yeah,
much.
thanks, Galen. I figured that, but that's gonna be the question, right? Is folks that will look at it as just a simple logo change, they'll assume that there's an adjustment, but thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Council Wells, sorry.
I kind of agree a little bit with you, Deputy Mayor, but mostly, I think if we're gonna redraw this, let's put things, I'm not in favor to have that on our letterheads and it goes out to, on pamphlets and that, and people come in and see a yellow on our towers, they come off there and see the blue. If I was to agree with this, which I think the way it is, I would just redraw what we have. Do the way you said, like, your lettering, your format, your text, whatever, you move that around when you're doing your redraw. But if I was gonna implement this, I would do it across the board. Like, the water towers would be done, everything would be done. To have half and half, I don't think it's a fit. So, myself, I would, as far as redraw, which you say we have to and all that, but if we wouldn't do the whole thing, which I wouldn't agree to right now anyways, but if I was gonna do it, I would have the whole thing done, that our municipality is the blue, green, and the blue, so.
Okay, so you're good with the B? A, B, C, D, E, F, G?
I'm good with the B, if we, not just to do letterheads and stuff. I think right now, I would go with redraw. I like B if it happens to get there. But I would stick with just the blue for now, redraw that. Then, if I was gonna do this, it would have to be all or none. Like, when we went from brown to blue, we didn't say, okay, we left part blue. We did the change. It did it all at once. You're not gonna go half and half. At least that's my opinion. If you're gonna change your colors, you're gonna change them. So,
So if I'm hearing you right, Council Wells, you're not really in agreement of changing it, but if you're gonna change it, do it all.
yes, I'm in agreement to the redraw, which we have to do.
Okay,
The text, the format,
Yeah,
to
okay.
do whatever you want for your lettering, that's fine. But if we take that route where we're gonna change the colors, which I probably wouldn't be in favor of, I would want the whole thing done.
okay,
As far as the redraw, changing the text, the format, which, like Kagan said, we have to do, just do it with the blue for now.
okay. Council Lewis.
Oh, she had
Okay, go
question
ahead.
for me or something.
That's a challenge of this Zoom thing, because you're not here, sorry.
Sorry,
Go
thank
ahead.
you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to just say one thing on that is that the current blue, the current branded blue is in the logo. So that top color is the current blue, just so that we did have that consistency so that we're not losing, because we're not changing to 3 new colors. We're just adding new colors, just to clarify.
And I'm not questioning the blue, whether it was our blue or whatever. I'm just saying if we're doing the redraw, it's for what we have now, and you can change the format to whatever you want in your text and all that. But if we were to go and do everything, B was fine with me, but I would go the full change, like we did when we went from brown to blue. Brown was gone, blue was in, so.
Okay, Council Lewis now.
We're not even going to talk about D, E, and F. I just don't like them whatsoever. They're either, the green's either too dark or the blue's too light, and the two blues most definitely not. The A, I think that green is not the right color with the blue, myself. And I definitely don't like the dark green to that blue. B, I like B for the simple reason that you have the dark blue up top and you have like a bluish green kind of a color on the bottom. It seems to pop out at you for some unknown reason. So my pick would be B also. I really like the B one. Thank you, Matt.
No comment? Kalen? Okay, I'm just checking because I failed every other time. Councilor Mellon?
Yeah, my biggest thing is the text. You know, I hear what Councilor Wells is saying, but my biggest thing, and the thing that always bothered me with it before, was South Dundas was so damn small underneath it. I like, you know, it has to be bold and out there. So to me, the most important thing is the wording and the text options. The blue, I like B. I like B, and I hear what Councilor Wells is saying, but I think if we phase in just the change in the green and the blue representing the land, it can be phased in, which it will be over the next whatever. And then we can, you know, so it's not a big hit right now, but I think we need to get, I would change the color. I would go to B, but the text is my biggest pet peeve, I guess, if you will, whether we go with the stacked or the horizontal. I guess I sort of like the stacked, but then I'm sort of leaning toward, I think go with the horizontal, the municipality, which is smaller, but South Dundas in big bold letters. And, you know, so especially in the simple version where you just have South Dundas, you don't have the municipality. So I would go with B, horizontal text.
I'm not muted. Sorry. It's been a long time since I've been on Zoom. Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, with the text, we don't have to stick to just the horizontal or just the stacked. So that's the nice thing about this, is that with this change, it would change based on what we're using it for. So we would have sort of the horizontal, but if we were in a situation where we had like limited space or something like that, the way that this would work is the designer gives us a brand guideline, basically. And so it outlines sort of when we're allowed to use it for what situations. And that kind of is really nice for all staff, because it means that if they're like putting together a report or something, they know what they're using. But it means that if there's a limited space in terms of width, then we could move to the stacked option kind of thing. So just so you know that.
That's a good point. Yeah, you can vary how it's done, I guess, if you will. My big thing is get South Dundas bigger, bolder, more out there, the actual wording, instead of fine print that you gotta squint your eyes to see what it is. And like I said, I think, you know, if we phase this in, which it's gonna phase in over a period of time. You know, all we're doing is changing the green from the blue land, which never made sense to me, why the land was blue. But anyways, I'm not an artist, so I like B. And the text, you know, either horizontal or stacked, or in the simple version, you know, bigger lettering.
Done?
Yep.
Okay. To be honest, I was leaning to A. I did ask at home to a higher authority, and it was B automatically, so I guess I'm well outvoted. As for the lettering, you know, it certainly makes sense to go horizontal. I think it seems like the majority of council want to do it, but phase it in. So would it be fair for you to come back to council and give us an idea how the corporation will phase it through, if at all, in places? Because, you're right, but Council Wells does make a point. You're gonna have some done, some not. We did have some brown ones for a while that died off eventually. They're all gone now, but, we just did the water towers in our old colors. I'm not seeing this council doing it because of dollars, but there might be a thought of changing them someday sooner than later, because if this works well, then why would you not use it? But it all costs money, and sometimes you let things die on their own. Sometimes you look at it and say, well, like say on the pickup trucks or something like that, you say, well, they'll die. 10 years they're gone anyway, but the water towers don't. They're out there, and they're out there. Yes, there's a lot of white trucks out there, but I mean, you know what I mean. And how much you have for stationery and all this going forward. There might be places where you'd want to condense it, and there's other places you don't. You can let it go to its own peaceful end. That's the way I would look at it. So, you're still good?
I mean, I said my piece, but I think people are really, Kaylin's presented an option with double color, but with these in the 21st century now, people modify their colors depending on different situations, different whatever. The key is the actual logo, right? And I understand people's wanting to have it, whatever, but you also have to look at where it is. So on a water tower, I don't think anyone's going to drive by and go, they didn't put the green on there. There might, you wouldn't assume water's blue. It's.
I'm from the old school and know why the logo is what it is,
But
right?
you
And that's
also-
why I leaned it to
Yeah.
the greener green and said the turquoise or teal green.
Yeah. But keep in mind now, we now have a South Dundas Recreation logo.
Yeah. I know.
So that's the second. So that's whenever I was talking about specific corporate logos, where you have the administrative have that kind of muted if it suits it, and then economic development, tourism, whatever, has the flashier thing. That's what organizations do. You're in South Dundas hopefully most of the time, so the color doesn't, the color, as much as you driving by, but it's really that eye-catching to want people to find out more, right? So.
Fair enough. Council Wells, any further thoughts? You've heard council, they'll more phase-in type, so.
I'm still with, to do the redraw and the text and format, which you can change, but, I think for now, I would just stay with blue, but that would be, because at the end of the day, it's still gonna cost money. But I'm willing to listen, when you come back you're gonna bring it back again anyway, so. But for now, I'm just the blue.
Okay.
No, I'm good with the B.
I'm good.
Okay, so majority wants to change. I think, the question is how we get from from this point to the end point, and how fast, and if possible, some dollar figures and how it's gonna go. We won't be doing a lot of the spending, and maybe some of the tweaking will be the econo stuff online, right? And that's fair, and that's good. That way it gets us exposed to it, and there's a good possibility that once we see it often enough for the council that will be here, whether it's us or the next one, will say, we want to change faster or we want to change slower. And it's just the exposure, right? I'm from the old school, and I know Councilor Wells is somewhat from the old school, and we're all, except for Deputy Mayor Gardner, who's from the 21st century apparently, and us dinosaurs back here don't like change. I've been told I hate change, and here I sit trying to change the world. But anyway, if we do it right, it'll work well. That's the way I look at it. So, got enough information?
It is. Thank you, Council. So yes, I'll come back Now that we have the choice, I can go back to the designer and she can actually finish out the project and we'll have her deliverables to us. And at that time, we'll have the brand guidelines and that'll be integrated into our communications policy, which will need updating. And so I'll come back at that time with the plan as well as the approval for the update to the communications policy.
Okay, anything further from council? Okay, thank you, Kalen. Take care.
Thank you.
So within the council package, you have a request from the Canadian Club of Morrisburg District asking to be a corporate member or sponsor to the organization. I have been part and parcel of it in the past, and it's a pretty good night. I'm not sitting here saying that we should or shouldn't do it, but I did tell Ann that I would bring it to council for their yay or nay. I think we had this last year and we said no at that time. So, and just for council's information, if you feel that it's a worthy cause, want to do it on your own, it's $185 a person for the six meals that you get with speakers. So, and the meals are at the Legion, so you're not going home hungry, I'll guarantee you that.
I read it. I read the first little bit, and it's in. Apparently, there's some history here that people on council were part of the Canadian Club. Is that?
It's never been, as long as I've been on council, we've never been part and parcel a corporate member.
Well, we believe that over the years, as member changed on council, the interest given to the Canadian Club of Morrisburg District from South Dundas Council has somewhat dwindled.
Well, I would say this, some of the old council members were members or did become members. As I said, I was a member at one time because my mother-in-law was there, and I waned off it. I look at the speakers and then make a determination, but as I said, it's a good group of meetings. It's good fellowship, that kind of stuff. So I say this, that if you're looking for votes in September and October, then it's a good place to be because half your crowd is from South Dundas and the other half, unfortunately, is from North Dundas, but we let them down here and be part and parcel of it.
Well, isn't that nice? Okay, so when I read it, that's just, expectations of council. It just felt like it was an expectation.
Understood. It wasn't well worded.
Okay, so so it's just a group of speakers, and you because they've never presented to us, correct? So
That is correct. They are coming after the fact instead of what we usually do if they were part and parcel of other groups where we ask them to do the donation, do the donation application like others, and go through the budget process. Then we'd have that fair opportunity to discuss it. Now we're kind of stuck with this.
Yeah,
I
I've known
understand, and usually council doesn't like that.
Well, it's just my reference point is my grandfather was a member of the
Well, I know,
and he's been gone for 20 years. So I just
It is an older clientele. That's all I'll say.
And that's excellent. I guess for me, I just balked a little bit because I hate whenever it's people are saying that we haven't done what we're supposed to do. So when I looked at it, I was kind of like, I think it would be fantastic to go to. I've sat through most of the speakers that are actually on the list multiple times. But I think that I've been fairly vocal at having this discussion at budget time, right? So they're asking for sponsorship now. And I have said that we have a process, it's past the deadline, we don't have any money, so I can't see. I would participate if someone watching this wants to send me an email and get tickets, I will purchase tickets, but I don't see, the way that we've had our discussions about people coming to us for sponsorship, especially near the end of this term, I want to be fair, and we've said no to other groups, so.
Okay. Council Lewis?
I believe that this come a little late. Yeah, if I decided to become a member as council, I have September 21st and October 19th, getting pretty close to the day of the election. I do believe that maybe they should go through the process of asking the next council if they want to become members, or because I don't even know if I'm going to be here next round, so I'm going to say myself personally no to this. I think this should have been brought up at budget time and not this late in the year. And I think that's where I'll leave it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I knew of the Canadian Club, and they're a great club. But I'm going to say the same thing. Like, we've had other committees come to us and organizations and ask for stuff, and there's a process. So I have to say no, because I said no to every other one. If this would have came up in front of me, like in budget, I would definitely go for something like this, because I am aware of the club. So there's a due process, and I'm sticking by that, like I've had for all the other requests. So I would have to say no.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we got a process. I mean, and it's even more awkward or difficult right now, because let's face it, 4 of the meetings are after the next municipal election. So, we're going to buy the tickets, and then, the next council, so no, this is something I don't think we should be touching now. I would definitely fire an email off back to them and highly encourage them to submit at the next budget, because I just don't feel it's right for us to, like Councillor Wells and others have already spoken to, the fact we've already turned down, late requests, and especially with it being, I guess, if you will, awkward enough at an election time when 4 of the 6 meetings are actually, so the next council has, you're a member of a Canadian Club. You get elected, you get a member of a Canadian Club, you don't get a free meal. Encourage somebody to run. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, no, so I don't think it's right now, this is not the time for us to do this, but I would encourage them to submit for next budget.
I don't disagree with council. We ask others to follow the process, and I'm going to ask the clerk that when she replies to Ann, that she let them know of how our process works, and if they want to apply, then as much as it's well ahead of their next year, at least the next council going to make a decision. I suspect budget won't be until probably January, February, because of council orientation and getting up to speed. So please do so. I did send council the individual email package, or individual package by email, so you guys can make your own choice on whether you want to attend or not. You don't have to attend. You can attend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever you choose. And between her and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Grinke's still part and parcel of that club, so one way or the other, if you're interested, please do so. I tend to wonder what the meal is that night, and then pick and choose that way too, so. I do like their turkey meals, so haven't had one for 2 years now. Okay. Key information report and fleet repairs. Jeff. We're just getting to the page. Oh, I got there. Okay, it's on page 41. So, reason I asked you to come tonight is that the budget was at 175 and you are now at 179. So, you need to explain to council what your plan is for the next 6 months of the year.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor.
To be fair, we had a budget discussion and, you know, no disrespect, it's just that I know that you things didn't maybe guess up in time, but now we have to figure out how we're gonna technically budget it, or we just go deficit and hope for the best, so.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, in speaking with my mechanic, he's well aware of the situation. I'm well aware of the situation. We have vehicles that do need to be safetied, so that they can plow snow. So we are still going to proceed. I am going to definitely try to minimize the repairs that are needed. I'll give you a little tidbit of information that we do have 2 vehicles. They're both half-ton vehicles that are sitting behind my Williamsburg garage. And any valuable part that is on that vehicle is now off of that vehicle and has been put on another vehicle that's presently running within our fleet. So we are trying to reduce costs by salvaging, reusing where we can. We actually, my mechanic went to the point where he switched the box off of the back of a half-ton and replaced it with a different box off of a vehicle that is no longer in operation. So the fact that we are trying, I guess I can't control the cost that we spent on the rubber-tired excavator, which definitely has impacted the 179, the grader with the electronic transmission. Those are things that we couldn't foresee, and I hope you can appreciate the fact of that. Those are key contributors that has driven the price up to 179. And let's be realistic, the prices are expensive. Parts are expensive right now to purchase. We're waiting on parts. It's hard to get them. So I'm doing my honest best. If you have a better solution, I'm all ears on how to minimize this. But at the end of the day, we're operating the best that we can with doing the repairs. And I'm being very honest when I say that.
Okay, and fair enough, I like some of the words you said about, you know, sealing parts to keep things going, because I did notice that when I drove by the Williamsburg shop on Saturday, that there were some derelict vehicles growing weeds in behind, so if they're used for parts, that's fair enough. And the attitude that we'll, you know, fix what we have to fix, and, you know, the fancy stuff's gonna be let go, and you know, if it's got to be fixed, fair enough. I don't disagree. You know, it's a number we chose with your guidance to go through the year. 2 big repairs put a big dent in it. I understand that. So if you exclude them, maybe, you know, that would help you, give you some room. However, you know, when your mechanic goes through things, and if something is good enough, then maybe good enough's going to have to do for this year, because that's what it would do on the farm. If it was a bad year on the farm, if the tire's a little bald, well, if it passes safety, she's going on the road till she doesn't pass safety. And that's what, well, we have a truck and trailers, and we'll run them till they're to that fine point. And I know that causes some trouble traction-wise, but maybe we just can't be as fussy anymore. We're you know, and I'll let council speak. As just me speaking from my point of view. I understand, you know, you're not going to run a backhoe without an AC because it'd be just a cookhouse in there and stuff like that. But it just seems that we need to, now that we're at the edge, fix what we have to fix. If it's good enough, well, we'll wait till it breaks. And then, yeah, we might have to spend a few more dollars. Yes, things have gotten more money. There's no doubt about it. Like, tires are absolutely crazy. There's a classic example. You got to make those tires last every little ounce you can do and make them last. And I'm not saying they're not, but now we're at that edge. And that's the way I would look at things. The simple stuff, the oils and stuff like that you must do, that you have no choice. Oil is cheap because the breakdown is much more money because we didn't change the oil, didn't change the filters, and they're all up. I just went and bought 1 liter of full synthetic oil, I used to buy a whole case for the price I paid for that 1 liter. So yeah, things have gone crazy, and same on the farm, but that's the way I would look at it now that we're at this point. Council Wells, I'll let you start any discussion on it. And I said, I'm only one member of council, so.
And I'm used, I have big equipment. I got a boom truck. I know what it costs to put 10 tires on it and stuff like that. And it's just, we're having a bad year. Like, as far as breakdowns, few accidents, things, there's $10,000 there that stuff happens. But if something like that didn't happen and that, like, I think the 175, when we sat and talked about it, we had a good discussion at budget time, and I think your numbers would have been right there, Jeff, if it wasn't for, there's always unforeseens, it doesn't matter, like, you're gonna get that. So you have 6 months and you're taking the initiative to, I seen it there too. I thought Brent Welch was renting the back part of our part there. I wasn't quite sure, but anyways,
Sorry.
it's, yeah, so you're doing the best you can, and that's all we can ask as council. So just we'll get through this year and see who has to worry about it next year. So that's it for me.
Council Mellon?
Realistically, Jeff's already, spoke to it, the two big items that, nailed us. I always thought 175,000, we didn't give ourselves any wiggle room in there at all, as far as I was concerned. I was always concerned the last 2 years when we set it at 175,000. That doesn't allow for those oops, if you will, when something decides she's going to hand grenade on the road on us. So realistically, we're probably going to need 75,000 more in that budget. I would go out on a limb right now and say that, and realistically, that's the bottom line. We haven't got around to where that money will come from. We'll work about that later. But I mean, we're doing what we do. And I mean, we fix this stuff, and I'm sure Jeff and the mechanic are not spending any money that doesn't need to be. I look at what's been done on those 6 vehicles since the last report, and there's nothing on there that you can really eliminate. You want to, tires, well, maybe, I don't blame the mechanic if if the tires aren't going to pass the safety, I'm sure he's not, maybe, get 8 months left out of them, we'll change them now. I'm sure that's not the case, and we know that. So the 2 big items hit us. Probably 75,000 is probably going to be needed by the end of the year to get us through. And I think that's a valuable lesson, I think, next year. We can budget, going back and look at what we've spent historically. But I think we need to have a built-in contingency, if you will, of, money that, if, the backhoe, the big hydraulic pump goes on the backhoe, or you could go down the list of things that, I know just from my personal perspective, in the last 2 years, parts, and you can probably attest to this, Mayor, have probably gone up 30-40% in the last 2 years just on farm equipment parts. And you get into industrial stuff and they see you coming down the road and they're smiling and they open the door for you because they know they got you. And there's no other, so, parts have gone up, and they're gone up 30 or 40% probably in the last 2 years. So let's drive on. I think we need to discuss maybe later on, how we'll finance this 70, whatever we're going to be short. Will it be just put to the bottom line, or I'll get yelled at, but we do have a surplus. I know, but I mean, why?
I know, but no disrespect, Council Mellon, I mean, you can nickel dime at budget time too. Just to let you know.
Yep.
There's certain items all of a sudden you just, okay, Council Mellon's really wearing this one down.
But we got to fix what we got to fix. where we get the money from, we'll get the money, and it'll be just, we gotta keep the fleet on the road.
Okay, Council Lewis.
So I do believe, you know, we wouldn't have the mishap with the rubber tire hi-ho and one backhoe. I think you would have been right on, you know, right on the base where we should have been. And when you have a big fleet like we got a big fleet, it costs what it costs. And everybody knows that to buy a part anymore, they've gone crazy. Like, it's phenomenal how stuff has gone up 3 or 4 times more than what it's really worth. But if you want it on the road, you pay it. And we can't have our vehicles sitting behind or inside the garage down running. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. And Jeff, I know that you and the mechanic are trying your best. So I guess we just have to live with it. That's the way I look at it. Maybe at 175,000, maybe we kind of chimped off a little bit, and maybe it should have been 200,000. But it's a learning experience. That's what I say. But you know, it is what it is. Parts not cheap, so I have no complaints.
Yeah, Mayor?
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate this situation. Obviously, you would love to be able to come to us and say we're under by that 75,000. Our staff need to be safe when driving in those vehicles. Obviously, you know, when you're telling us what you're doing, I'm feeling that you know, the attempts are being made to not go crazy, and you know, it's been a very expensive couple of years, and the numbers are not going down. Everything's expensive. Everything's sometimes in most cases have doubled. I appreciate your explanation, and at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is, right? So.
Okay, well, fair enough. I'm still in the books of, yeah, we gotta run it safe, but we run her to the end. And council's different, and fair enough, they wanna spend, go ahead, but, I know trucks aren't cheap. It cost me 10 grand to get the big girl safety this year, cause there was a lot of stuff that had to be repaired. Truck's 20 years old. Some of our trucks aren't even close to that age, and all of a sudden they need a big pile of money. I had to replace the starter on it last week too. That was another grand by the time we got it off and on. So maybe just, you know, be creative as best you can, run things as long as you can, and, you know, I think this is part and parcel of, you know, council's not looking over your shoulder all the time, but being concerned that, you know, the money's, you know, this was one file that we all were a little interested in, or a lot interested in at budget time, to make sure it was within range. And for us to go through probably a half-hour discussion on it at budget time and then ignore it the rest of the year, I don't think is right for our seats as being a responsible council. So do the best you can, send that to the mechanic, but in the end, you're right, things got to be fixed, but money won't magically appear, that's for sure. Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so I appreciate what you're saying, and don't take it as if I'm hearing what the deputy mayor and the councillors are saying, that it's just a blank check to go out and spend what I want. That's totally not the case. That's totally not the case.
You'd be in trouble if you tried that one, because I think it'd be a different tune.
We try to push it out as long as we can, and everybody's welcome to come to Williamsburg and see what my mechanic does. He's very diligent. He's very good at his job, and he knows that money is tight. So he's shopping around, he's pricing it around, he's getting his fleet discounts, he's doing what he can. So the effort's there. I don't want you to think that the effort is not there. It is definitely there, and we're definitely working within our means that we know what to do. So I just wanted to finish off with that.
Okay, thank you very much. I also pulled the key information report in the June 2022 budget to actual, and I see Mr. Mason's on the line. I'm not here to go through every line, Sean. I'm hoping council, if there's any question on a particular line, you can go ahead. Things have changed since we ran our budget, and inflation and the war is two different things that we never accounted for at budget. Fuel prices are up, parts are up, things are up, services are up. Have they impacted our budget? Are there things that we should be aware of as council at the midterm that, not necessarily a course correction, but at least be aware of the situation that it could cause us issues down the road? So I assume, Sean, you're taking charge on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me okay?
And we don't hear Sean.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, coming on now. Sort of.
Any luck now?
We're just hearing you, bits and pieces of you, sir.
All right, let me try a different.
Oh, you got you now.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry about that. I'm having some bandwidth issues here, so there'll be no video either.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
understandable.
go ahead with any questions you have, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Okay, well, let's go through the variance sheet, and then if council has any specific questions, and, or if you see concerns that we should be aware of, as I said, then let us know. Not that we're gonna here to change the world, but at least, you know, and to be honest, a half-year budget to budget or budget to actuals are not fair, because not everything is equal during the year for us, because winter maintenance is part and parcel. But things like fuel are pretty general, and you know, stuff
Yes,
like that, you know, as I said, may cause us issues down the road.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, inflation are at numbers right now we haven't seen in 20 and 30 years. So, and as I mentioned, when we presented the budget back in January, there was no real inflationary considerations taken into the budget. And of course, now we've been double whammied. We didn't allow for an inflation number in the budget, and now we've been slapped with it. So it's going to continue to affect us for the rest of the year, whether it's fuel, whether it's repairs, whether it's tendered prices. We're seeing it. It's a reality, and all we can do is attempt to mitigate it as best we can, as Jeff had mentioned, and then continue to run the municipality.
So it almost sounds by your wise words that we were very fortunate to have a surplus from last year that we can use to offset the potential deficit for this year because of the challenges that we're facing. I did actually talk to a resident last year, and I guess on Sunday, and they were very happy being in South Dundas. They came from other areas, and they were happy with the taxes so far. But I said, I'll just be warning you, I think the new council is going to be very challenged with keeping any kind of rates within anything normal because of the year that A, we're going through now, and B, that could be potentially down the road. So.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, prior years, any year that there's a budget surplus, staff and the auditors transfer any of those surpluses to the appropriate reserves. And when you hear us mention going to the bottom line, any surplus or deficit falls to the bottom line, goes to the fiscal policy reserve, the general reserve. And ideally, those surplus dollars that had been realized in prior years would go to fund any potential deficits in future years as well.
Okay, so, any comments, questions, concerns, Deputy Mayor?
Just wondering, how we just had the conversation about maintenance on our fleet, and it was pointed out, we have a lot of vehicles. Has there been a discussion about reducing driving where we can? I mean, we've got some road closures coming up, right? That's gonna add on more mileage, more kilometers. Is it a case of relocating vehicles so the staff go, I know there's roundabout ways to go through the road closures, but it's gonna add up eventually over time. And I've sat at tables with staff and we've come up with creative solutions to kind of, you can't cancel it out, everything's expensive, but to at least do due diligence to see if there's ways to find better ways to manage, to kind of try and reduce some of those expenses. Because that's what our residents are doing right now. I mean, if you drive around on I can't remember what day we came back, on Friday, and the streets, like the roads are dead. People aren't driving and stuff. So I just, have we had those conversations? Because I mean, as much as we can't control the war or the pandemic, or even the fleet repairs, we can control some things. So I'm just wondering if there's been a conversation or even reducing, finding cost savings different ways.
You want to answer it, CEO? Yes, sir. From a staff point of view?
Yeah, we've had some discussions at senior staff in regards to sharing of vehicles to minimize the cost, as well as from an administrative standpoint, between our building department and our bylaw, we look at opportune times to go out. So maybe we're doing an inspection and a bylaw complaint at the same time, rather than having two vehicles go out. We look at opportunities to save on gas. I can't speak for Jeff or for David from their perspective on their operations, but I think the plan is that we realize across the board there is some deficits to be recognized. We're hoping is some of the surpluses that come in can soften that deficit blow. But I think the commitment around the senior staff table is to look at savings anywhere we can, and if it's even a couple dollars here, it all adds up.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it can be as simple as, where you park a truck.
Yep.
Where people pick up, it's like the north-south.
Absolutely.
Within the municipality and that type of thing. Because I remember when the prices went up to $1.50, that was a huge jump at that time. And there were so many conversations around how do we minimize, and actually sometimes it involved halving routes, where you'd have one staff that did one major route, but instead stayed less driving, staying in your area. So I think our residents need to know that those conversations are happening, and it's not fun. And I mean, we should be efficient at any time, but especially now.
Yep.
And if those efficiencies make sense, then they should probably stay all the time. But
Absolutely.
now's a good time to get creative. So that's my 2 cents, Mayor.
Councilor Lewis?
Well, I believe everybody's doing their best. I don't think anybody's driving where they shouldn't have to drive or where they shouldn't be. I checked the budget over, and really, I think we're right on pace. I don't think really there's going to be a lot of things over what we've discussed. I know sometimes it's hard to find anybody in one of those white trucks. So they're not doing stupid driving and stuff like that. I think all the employees are trying their best. And hey, what else can we ask for? So, and I think that's about where I'm going to leave it. I think we're still in pretty good shape.
Okay. Before I go to Councilor Mellon, I went to fleet expenses. We just discussed it, vehicle gas licenses and maintenance was $315 grand budgeted, and we're at $290, so it doesn't leave you a lot of wiggle room left for the end of the year. And those are kind of those, if we weren't and those expenses will not stop, right? that's your challenge with this whole thing. And it's the same in the farm industry. It doesn't matter where you are. How do you, and we're not in a revenue situation. Our revenue's been fixed by this council by a budget, so it's not like our commodities gone up like a farmer. Well, we can spend a bit more on fuel, we're good, all right, but don't like it, but we do it. That's one of our challenges, that those kind of lines stick out like a sore thumb, and they will go over, they'll go negative, and then you'll say, okay, we got to go through the year, I understand that. But as Deputy Mayor said, then you get creative. You say, how do you plan a trip? You're thinking in a day, what am I got to do today, and how do I go from point A to point B to point C to point C and get back to home and do everything I want to do? And I think in the old days, you wouldn't consider that as frequently. You'd be willing, well, you can do this kind of stuff. Not saying they did, but it's easier to do. Now it takes more thought process, in my opinion. Councilor Mellon?
Oh, yeah, I mean, when I looked, I went through this list a couple times before, and, going through here now again, what we budgeted for, especially bridges and culverts, that jumped out at me. I think we budgeted 1.8 because that's what the estimate, I think, or what number we were thinking of for Taylor Road. Obviously that number is probably $1 million less, or 900, whatever. Taylor Road's going to come in a lot less than that. I'd like to see those numbers, like what, I guess we don't have those numbers yet. I guess we could give a cost estimate of, the difference between what we had budgeted for and that. On arena expenses, like the capital on the arena expenses, like, we didn't budget anything, and, we're at, we got 40,000 of actual in the arena this year. So, those are the ones that, now I know we went through a whole discussion process and, decided what we were going to do with it, but those are the ones that and that's, that's 40,000, but, all in all, I think it's hard to really get a good grasp of it with only 6 months in. I think you can see the trend, and you're absolutely right, Mayor, the maintenance on some of this stuff, just because we're 6 months in and we're over and we're already at our budget, that doesn't mean, well, we're done, or you're done all right. But anyways, those are the two capital, maybe the capital things, are the only ones that, the arena, 40,000, and, obviously we budgeted more than what we're going to need for Taylor Road, but I mean, obviously that money isn't really, that never came out of taxation yet because we hadn't got around to that part of it. So you can't really.
Bridges is a poor example because we don't spend it on the bridge
Yeah.
this year. We need it for next year,
Yeah, need it
right?
for next year, so-
it's not the
It's not a-
everyday expense, right?
You're absolutely right. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but because, obviously that money's going to have to be financed next year, so. But anyways, I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. Hate to say those things, but it is what it is. I think we're in line, actually. Hopefully, let's face it, we got a pretty good handle on this, and these reports on a monthly basis, quarterly basis are, good help because, if something jumps out at you, we can scream. But, I'm done.
Councilor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I got to echo, like Deputy Mayor said, I'm sure the staff is going to think of ways to save. And like when I was going over this here, it's easy to see why we're over, obviously, because the last 30 years are inflation and that, and those lines for the gas and that, we have no control over them. Like the bridges and all that stuff where we're going to save, it's set. But I'm concerned, yeah, because we're not kidding ourselves here. We're going to go over budget on quite a few things, but then there's going to be things we're going to be under budget. So hopefully all we can hope for is at the end, it kind of equals out that we're staying within budget. But again, like staff, like get creative on stuff, how to cut down on things that we can cut back on, like traveling and not wasting trips or whatever. And I'm sure staff is doing that. So at the end of the day, it's, we just gotta hope. Now, the gas prices are starting to come down a bit. Not a lot, but unfortunately, when you have all diesel vehicles, it's not very good either, but anyways, all we can do is just be creative, and that's all you can ask of staff, and go from there, and we'll keep an eye on these numbers and go from there.
Okay. Any comments from staff or Sean or whatever? Like, I think it's, I don't think I brought it up to disrespect staff or anything like that. It was just, we as a council have to be, at least have the conversation that we're at 6 months. We've seen numbers that may trouble us. For us to say nothing is not doing our job. Simple as that. Go ahead.
Echo is, your concerns are our concerns, and we do discuss them every month or every quarter. I think every month Sean provides monthly variance reports to our department heads, so they're looking at them on an ongoing basis to see where, okay, it's over here, but where can I have some cost savings somewhere else to kind of offset it. So it's a conversation always at our table, and it's something that we recognize the same as council, that ultimately, end of the year, we want to come in with some good news for council. Some of the things are out of control when it comes to gas pricing and stuff, but we are working behind the scenes to make sure, we can tighten the numbers for sure.
Okay. Anything else from council? Okay, well, thank you a lot, Sean, for sticking around tonight, and thanks, Shannon, for your updates. So we'll move on to the Aircoil flagpole. We had a request from the Aircoil District Business Group concerning the decision by staff in this council on changing the flagpoles at the plaza location. So council has read what they would like to see, and I will bring now David to give us their staff's point of view, and then council will make a decision on where we will go forward. So David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as you guys can all see in front of you is a little bit of package. So I included the message from Candace there that everybody saw this morning. On the second page, I included a picture that shows the condition of the existing base plate. I'll be honest, I don't quite believe that that's even the original base plate, but I don't have any evidence to the contrary. It's obviously fully deteriorated, and you can see that just driving by on the street. I'd say that flagpole probably has a 2 to 3 foot lean on it as it is. At budget, bringing that flagpole in line while also considering costs. So trying to bring it in line with our flag policy. Currently has 4 flags on it. 2 of them currently contravey our flag policy, which would show that we only fly the Ontario and Canada flags, generally on municipal properties, with the exception of the municipal center. The other item that comes up is this is a nautical style flagpole that's there at the moment. And I do very much want to thank the previous donors, obviously well before this council and most of the staff's time, who donated that flagpole. But I reached out to Flags Unlimited to try and get a Canadian price of a replacement flagpole today. They couldn't quite get me one in time, so unfortunately the price that's included in the little package today is for a 30-foot double-mast nautical flagpole. I just pulled it off the internet. This company is actually based out of Miami, so I suspect that $11,794 is probably US dollars. So you can add a little multiplier on there. This is the cost that we would pay for a replacement pole if we wanted to put in a new nautical pole. Technically, I think the one that's there is a 35-footer, and this is a price for a 30-footer. As budget was approved previously, so staff have already purchased the 2 new 35-foot poles to be installed there. Actually, I just requested the locates last week, so I'm in the process of collecting locates as we're getting closer to the end of July when I was hoping to do all the work. So they're currently already been purchased. You can see we purchased 2 new poles. They'd be identical to the ones outside the municipal center here for $2,800. So the price difference between rough estimate of a $15,000 nautical pole versus Just putting in 2 poles brought us in line with the flag policy. That's a little bit of the background and base information for council, so that was sort of the staff's outlook in the previous months. I would say to Candace's comments, there is the possibility that we could install the 2 poles that we have now, and going forward, look into installing 2 more similar poles. Obviously, we have the information on how much that would cost. But then we're going back and we're going to have to review the flag policy, update the flag policy. The group would be looking for an exception from that policy. If we're looking to meet in the middle somewhere. Alternatively, we stay within the flag policy, we put the new flag poles in and go from there. Or I guess the third option would be that we'd be looking into the poles that we have already purchased and returning them, and there'd be some losses there. So those are sort of my thoughts and some of my solutions to what's in front of us, and I'll put it back to council for their comments.
Okay, as council may recall, we did have this discussion at budget, and this was the decision that we went through. So anyway, go, Council Wells, start.
Yeah, and we had a discussion, but, so these flags, so what I'm reading this, Candace wants to keep the other 2 flags up, correct? Like she wants them.
With a nautical pole.
That's her suggestion, yes.
Yes.
And our policy, and council's had that policy
That
gone
we
through
only
all-
run these certain flags.
That's correct, and this would be an exception within South Dundas. Go ahead.
Well, like I can see, like we can put exceptions in there, so I hate to take away from the group, like the drive they got and the momentum going in there, like they're doing their stuff like that, and to just make it short and sweet, I think if for this, like I would be willing to change it to allow them to run the 2 extra flags. Just because there's so much hep up there, and they're changing the things, and now, like we just agreed to do a 4-year thing with them, allow them to go ahead and put the chair and the picnic shelter and all that. Then we go and we take away 2 flags. I'm not gonna go, I know what we said in our policy, I know the policy, but I would, this one-time thing, go and agree to allow them to put up 2 more flags.
So nautical style or 4 flag poles altogether?
Well, we're allowed, not floor, you can put 2 flags on each pole.
Oh, no.
Why can't-
That disrespects
You
the
can't
flag
put a-
that's on top.
Oh, is that right? You can't go like 1 on each side?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Wells, we wouldn't be able to fly another flag with the Canadian flag. And so my proposal of putting in 2 more flagpoles, currently there's the 1 flagpole in the middle. We're going to come in and put 2 on basically either side of the flower bed. I think going forward, we could install 2 more. We'd be able to put 1 in the middle and then step forward and put another 1 in front. And then that one would be the new Canadian flag. And I'd have to double check all of my flag rules, but I think that would fall within the rules, but you can't fly another flag with the Canadian flag.
No. You're not supposed to do that. Now, I know flag rules have been very liberal and fluid in the last 6 months, but technically, that's what we're supposed to
So
do.
the 2 flags that, well, then, like I would wait till budget again, and I would agree to put up the other 2 flagpoles to get their flags back up to what they want. And just for the simple reason, like when Candace was here the last meeting, and they're a group they're active, and you start putting little, I don't know, that's my opinion right now is to,
Okay, Councilman Mellon.
Oh, I'm willing to support them, but not to the point that it's gonna cost us twice as much money. We have the 2 flagpoles and they're at these, that's that quote, right? 70 all in, 57.9. Is what we, so the 2 flags we got now, plus HST, but I mean, the nautical flag, if it's gonna come in at 15,000, or whatever, for a flag like that, I'm not willing to, we could maybe try and resell that one, but I'm not willing to do that either. We have the flag, the 2 flag poles we have now. I'd put them up and talk to the Iroquois Business Group or Candace and, see if there's any fundraising or donations or whatever, because I have a little bit of a problem with, us spending that kind of money for a special, I guess, if you will, nautical theme out there. There's nothing wrong with having it. It looks nice. It really does. But I mean, golly, if we're going to spend that kind of money, it's we're going to get, we need 4 more flagpoles. It's cheaper to buy 2 more flagpoles than to put up a nautical one, unless we can send them back. So. Yeah, I think this needs to go. We'll put up what we got and have the conversation with them to see if they want to put in another 2 next year. That's putting it off onto the next council to have to give them the, get around our flag policy or, an amendment to it. One-time amendment, yeah, I do that a lot, but, okay, I'm done.
Councilor Lewis.
Well, I had a conversation with Candace the day that we did the chair. I believe that it's the nautical flagpole that they don't want to lose because of the locks, the buoys. You can most likely put 6 flagpoles up, and I don't think that's going to change. I honestly think the issue is us taking that flagpole down that is there now. That nautical pole was donated. I know that for a fact. David, did we see what it would cost to repair that pole, or is it absolutely kaput?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Lewis. I'll pull the engineer side of my brain out and I'll tell you engineers don't love bolts for flagpoles very much on a good day. And that base plate that's already there, I'd say, is a little small. But you could look into engineering it, but you're really starting to scab together a flagpole.
Well, I don't think the flagpole itself is in that bad a shape.
You're going to end up with a 2-foot base that comes up to get off the base, and then a bigger base plate than is there currently. But you're probably looking at a whole new foundation. You're probably looking at similar to more costs to what the flagpoles. Maybe not the similar cost of the nautical flagpole, but I'd say in the similar range of the $8,000 to $9,000 that we'd budgeted this year. By the time you get engineering and a new foundation in there.
Because I don't really think, I don't think putting up 2 more poles to make it 4 is going to make a difference. I believe they don't want to get rid of that nautical pole. And I don't want to knock the wind out of their sails and say it's got to go. So we put it off until next year. And as our recreation man said, that is a price from the States. He hasn't got a price from our company here. I would be willing to wait to see what it is actually worth in Canada. That's where I stand.
Yeah, I'd like to reconsider my decision on this and supporting to replace it with the 2 poles. They've created a brand there. The Seaway locks are a big part of that brand. They're working so hard with planning things out. The last council with the roundabout did not give them a streetscape situation, so they've had to overcompensate in the area, and they're making that this area. And, you know, sometimes you can take away. I think from a tourism business perspective, I can see they're branding it out. They've got the buoys, they've got the, you know, it makes sense to have a nautical flagpole when you've got the big buoys there. Why bother having those there, right? They've got the brand, and you know, they're working really, really hard. That plaza has come to life, and you know, just seeing the way that they're thinking things out, and more importantly, their commitment over 4 years to make it work. It's not a just one and done and leave it there. They've got plans and stuff, and you know, I champion partnerships and you know, working together. And they do not have the option of light poles and standards to put that stuff up. So that spot where the big chair is kind of it in front of their mall for that area. And I'd like to reconsider. And yes, I know these are tough times. And yes, I'm generally speaking a huge stickler with, you know, requests and that type of thing. But as we've said, tourism doesn't take care of itself. This would be our part in that corner, because they've gone after an SD&G grant. They've put the labor into, you know, thinking it out. They've got the volunteers on the islands. I mean, it's not that they're not doing their share. I think I would hope we could maybe reconsider, and this will have a long-term impact. So if we put the 2 pools in or the 4 pools in, you know, and then someone comes and says that looks ridiculous, and then we do it the right way the second time around, you know, even though there's a cheaper version on the table, it's not necessarily smart to do the cheaper version first and then correct the thing. And as far as the flagpole policy or the flag policy is concerned, I think that was one of the policies I, you know, had received a call on probably 3 months into my time at this table. And as long as we do it right, but I think it's important they maintain that identity. And, you know, we still hear about the tourism booth gone and this type of thing. And the nautical theme is part of it. So we're going to have to figure out a way, I think, to support the way that they want to brand that area. I don't know if it's now or later, but I'm willing to admit that I potentially made a mistake voting for the two flags and not considering their branding position.
I just want to add one thing.
Sure.
Now, since Councillor Lewis brought up about repairing that, now, couldn't we take, because it's just a loom pole, if there's nothing wrong with that nautical pole, why couldn't we take it down, weld on the piece so you don't lose your height, which you can, because these, the way it looks in the drawings, they just go down into a concrete foundation anyways. So it wouldn't be like, say, like, I don't know, that's a 12-inch sonotube or whatever you want. Couldn't we take that route, David? If, like, the pole, obviously the pole's not rotten. This here is definitely no good. So, like, take the pole down. You can get it engineered just to make up a welding thing. It'd be you have to go through, the welding, what's that? Certification. anyways, in Christ, I'm a licensed welder. And see, maybe do that to see if we can add to that. Then engineer could design something like weld on 4 feet and put a sonotube in and mount it, because that's the way this 30-foot pole, if it was new, was gonna be mounted. Correct? Like,
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Wells. So the new poles that we have in stock, the detail is they come with 4-inch-and-a-quarter anchor bolts that are 3 feet long that you cast in place. The sonotube is to be 36-inch diameter. That's for our new 35-inch. So that's the engineered design that come with our new poles. I would say this current pole will not meet the same engineering standards as so the new 35-foot poles, that's the detail I have. So that's my caution to going this direction.
so they're casting the anchor bolts, so we're gonna have a similar thing that it anchors to it instead of being, like have the pole right in the concrete?
No, there's a base plate and there's 36-inch long, 1.25-inch anchor bolts that go into the 36-inch diameter sonotube. That is the current engineered detail for the new 35-foot poles, which this 35-foot pole is
Because
bigger and
I'm
has
just going
more
by
sleds.
this drawing, that drawing's not showing
No.
that though. Like it's showing that actual, a pole.
Yeah, I'm
is in.
speaking to the poles that we already have in stock and we have the engineered details for.
Okay, so we have these 2 poles. I guess sales order, eh, there's PO number. Anyways, like I would like to say the same too, like the look there is Iroquois, and I agree with Deputy Mayor on the tourism part, like sometimes you have to find a way to do it because like you have the tours in there, even the seat, I think it's engraved on the seat, the best little town by a damn sight. So if you take the flagpole away from them, it's all in the scheme, right? So I would have to go back on my word about the 4 poles and go with somehow to make it work with the nautical one.
Put the mayor in a
Can-
pickle spot.
Can we return them, like say with a 20% restocking fee or something? They weren't specially ordered, they were, right?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think that they're specialty flags, but I will say if we return at 20% plus the freight on it was $800, we're swallowing a pretty big pill.
Do we not have other flagpoles that need?
So I have 2 questions written down here, but I'll wait until the mayor goes, I think, probably before I.
I'm outvoted, so it doesn't matter.
Okay,
Because my challenge is, I think that first of all, I will say, all due respect to Candace, I said it last week, they've done a fantastic job, but sometimes change is not a bad thing. I still am very challenged that this municipality puts an American flag on a municipal property. You can do it on your own, I don't care. This is Canada, we've won the Canadian flag, provincial flag, our flag, that's it. The American flag does not belong on municipal property that we sanction. No disrespect to our American friends, but that flag is their flag and they fly it proud. It's not ours. You have to keep that in mind. Yes, it's got a nautical theme and we can't afford to buy new. The new is going to be, if this is anywhere close to reality, it's crazy. I think it could have looked good with the 2 flags. If you wanted 3, fair enough. I'm not really a big fan of the Seaway flag sticking on top either, because most people wouldn't know what it is anyway, in the end. You recognize the Canadian flag, you can recognize the Ontario flag. You know, we've been flying a Ukrainian flag here, which makes a lot more sense than the other 2 combined. So I'm the outlier. I still think we made the right decision then. Maybe we should have consulted with them. However, if that's what council wants to do, then I'm kind of in Councillor Wells' position where I would look at what's there and see what we can make a better engineered base to hold up what we've got. What is there? So the current flags are up there. How do we get them up there? There's no
Yeah, there is.
There is?
Yeah.
The outside ones?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not a problem. But you could extend the base. You could come up with a new engineer base if you wished. You know, I'm not saying that's your division, but I mean, somebody could do it. It would cost more money. I would have preferred that, you know, not only they say we'd like to keep it, we'd like to fix it up and we'll help find the funds for it. Yes, they don't have funds, but we'll probably, okay, so we've got $7,000 out of our pocket here now, just rough numbers. We may get back, if we can return them, maybe down to 4-ish. Ballpark, you don't know.
To you, Mr. Mayor, it would be, I didn't ask the question to Flag. I asked Flags Unlimited for a price of the nautical flag today. I didn't want to breach the returning the other flags today until we had this discussion.
Yeah.
I think I would turn to council and say we have an inventory of about 20 flagpoles. We're probably better taking this asset rather than giving 25% of it back for free.
Well, for sure.
To, you know, the Justice Building could use new flag, like, we have other locations in South Dundas that could use new flagpoles. That's, if we're gonna go that route, that would sort of be my recommendation, is that we own the flagpoles, we might as well put them in. I took our worst flagpole this year and budgeted to replace that, but I can go to flagpole 2 and 3 that are next due up to be replaced and replace them.
Okay, so fair enough, we can do that, I like that idea. So would it be fair to at least look at the idea of seeing what we can do to salvage what we've got and put in a new base? Because you're gonna have to put bases in for the other ones anyway, so that cost, only have to do one big base to deal with the weight of that flagpole, more or less, is reasonable. I think that's where council wants to go right now, from what I'm hearing, unless they tell me wrong. And as I said, I'm not here to dish the group. I think they've done well. It just, sometimes changing the old into new, later you say, that wasn't too bad idea, so, anyway. And by the way, if you didn't need 2 flagpoles, I could use one in Parlow and one at my cottage too, and I'd be happy, but I don't think council will go for that one.
Just ignore the price on there and we'll mark it up by 10%.
I always wanted a flag, but now I know how much they cost, so I don't think I'm gonna be that ambitious to get one of those fancy flags up. Go ahead.
So to you, Mr. Mayor, I think the what to do with the flags, I'll let it go around later, but that would be my recommendation. The other item that I have is, so if we go this route, so initially I had my Aircoil concrete work all scheduled for hopefully the end of July here. I think when I do that, I'd still like to take down the existing pole rather than continuing to leave the rusty old pole up. And then the Aircoil Business Group might not see the new pole engineered, new base installed until September, October, while it takes us time to go through that process of re-engineering, reallocating the staff time and getting a new hole in there. But I'd like to prioritize taking down the unsafe, like the pole has a 3-foot lean on it. And
It doesn't need to fall down on something or somebody.
right now, if it fell, it would fall on the brand new chair too, so.
Okay.
So that would be my other recommendation, is that there has to be some understanding. The only thing that might come up is our engineer detail, we get it, we do the work, it could be expensive. There's an unknown cost there.
Okay. Just one ringing through my mind on dates. The ideal date to have it finished would be by Applefest. I'm just throwing it on the table. You said September, October, so you gave me that sleeve.
Yeah.
You didn't say October, November, then the sleeve would have been gone, and it would have been something else. Anyway, so we'll go around one more time. Go ahead.
I like the idea of trying to see if we can fix that. I can't see it being that big a deal to get an engineer to weld a piece on it and something for the concrete. Like, I can't see it being that expensive. Like, I know, depend what engineers you guys are using. But anyways, I know the ones I use would do that pretty easily, but So what I'm saying, I want the nautical back and look into seeing if we can make that one work somehow by engineering it.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, sorry. And the new flagpoles, we'll keep them in stock?
Oh, yeah, I definitely
Because David
agree
was
with-
asking.
So,
I definitely agree with that.
to council here, the only thing I would say is council interested, so we can either just leave the flagpoles in stock, store them for a year is kind of inconvenient for me, but we can find a spot to keep them, because if we do this foundation route, we're gonna spend money there, but I'd love to install the flagpoles rather than store them this year.
Well,
But then the new foundation is a cost extra to the municipality at this point.
I guess that's next month's key information report.
Store the flagpoles, keep them for the second, third worst flagpoles we got. Take the flagpole down. There's lots of good welders that could easily weld whatever we need, a new plate, pop out the old cement, put new cement in.
We just need that little stamp.
Stamp.
Yeah, the stamp will be anybody know a chief engineer?
I do.
Go for it.
I agree with Councilor Walsh on this one. I think we gotta keep the nautical flag and see what we can do to repair the pole that's there. And, yeah, you put the new flag poles in storage, not unless the mayor wants to buy one at 50% over the cost, and then we'll talk business.
No, I can get cheaper. I was offered cheaper early on. Go ahead.
Nope, this is a great outcome. Like you said, you've got a list of flagpoles that are gonna need to be replaced. We're not actually out anything, and I think this is a nice reward for folks that are working really hard to make that area look really good.
Okay, so you got your direction from council. I have to say this as one closing note, and Councilor Wells probably could relate a little bit. There used to be a gentleman in the Williamsburg area called Mr. Frank Ostrander, and he put up flagpoles left, right, and center, and they were just basically 2 seat channels put into concrete, and the pole and 2 bolts, and we were good. Just to say.
I don't wear the pinky ring anymore, so I'll walk away from that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, David.
Okay, no notices of motion? No. Okay, then we have a new closed session, so before we move into closed session, I'd like to thank council so far for their work. It's been a long enough evening so far. I'd like to thank staff for all their input. I know it was a challenging few sessions, but it's part of our